Hello, everyone. Welcome to the East Bay Green Home Tour. Today's team is Rebecca Milliken from the City of Berkeley's Office of Energy and Sustainable Development, and Danae Shorter and McNeely Feewiger from the Ecology Center. The Ecology Center is hosting this event on their Zoom platform, and we're very grateful for their technical support. We have some green home experts on hand to answer the questions you type in the chat and Q&A fields. Our resident experts include people from the Berkeley Electrification Working Group, Citizens Climate Lobby, Quit Carbon, Harvest Thermal, and other reps from some of the sponsors. Next slide. Next slide. Sponsors make this tour possible and free to attend. Big thanks to the East Bay Community Energy, Stop Waste, Bayron, and the Switches On for advancing the transition to 100% clean renewable energy. You'll see some short ads throughout the program from sponsors whose products and services are essential and highly recommended. So I want to thank Quit Carbon, Got Watts, SPAN, Block Power, Electrify My Home, Eco Performance Builders, Harvest Thermal, and Zip Code East Bay. And a big shout out to the League of Women Voters and the Bridge Association of Realtors Climate Action Group for your strong climate advocacy.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, there we go. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rebecca Milliken from the City of Berkeley's Office of Energy and Sustainable Development. And here's a snapshot of today's program. We'll be watching 7 home tour videos. After each video, we'll have a short live Q&A with the homeowner. You can type your questions into the Q&A field at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We also have 3 short presentations today. Doug McKenzie will give us an update on the solar landscape, including batteries, net metering 3, known as NEM 3, and the programs that are out there to bring the cost down. Friday Apeliski from the Building Decarbonization Coalition will give us a tour of the Switches On website, a one-stop shop for rebates, advice, and contractors. And an array of East Bay residents will show us how they cook dishes from their family's heritage using induction ranges and cooktops. Today's program will be recorded, so you can watch anything you miss later.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Danae Shorter from the Ecology Center, and just really quickly going to go over some of our Zoom icons that are going to be most useful for you all today to participate in our program. The Q&A fields are specifically for questions. So if you want to ask a homeowner or presenter we're highlighting on screen, please use that Q&A panel. Of course, we have chat. Chat is for commenting and engaging with other attendees. Feel free to hop in there, introduce yourselves, chat amongst yourselves throughout the program. And we also have the live transcript icon. So that little CC at the bottom of your panel, that will allow you to disable or enable the live transcript on your screen, which can be helpful if you have any trouble hearing. And lastly, after every Q&A or presentation, the homeowners and presenters will drop down into the Q&A field and start to engage with participants and answer questions. The chat ambassadors will also be active there as well. So we are very motivated to try to give you the information you seek.
So what is a green home? So green homes come in endless sizes, shapes, and configurations, but what do they have in common? A green home is a haven from heat, smoke, and pollution. It's powered by renewable energy. It conserves water and sequesters carbon in trees, plants, and soil. It incorporates recycling, reuse, and composting, uses non-toxic and sustainably harvested materials, and builds health and resilience and restores the ecosystem. Even in the best climate change scenario, we're going to be dealing with more heat, drought, fire, smoke, and erratic weather in the East Bay. So how do we adapt to climate change without actively making it worse? And how do we thrive while also helping to slow or reverse the climate crisis? And also, how can we help our neighbors, because we're all in this together?
The green home concept touches on many aspects, like minimizing waste and choosing non-toxic or sustainable alternatives. Because of the urgency of the climate crisis, the two biggest themes in this home tour are switching to clean, renewable energy and saving water. We are living in a time of a great transition. The early adopters started on this path decades ago. For instance, we're now starting to see a market for recycling the first generation of solar panels. But the move to transition off fossil fuels is now hitting the mainstream. We're moving with great momentum into the age of clean, renewable energy, which is also the age of energy independence, comfort, and disaster resilience.
So there are three main steps to getting over the bridge to the new era. Shrink your energy needs, get off gas, and align with abundant, clean, renewable energy. And you can take these steps in any order, just depending on where you're starting and where you're already at. So perhaps it's more of a dance over the bridge. And you can choose from a big menu of actions in each category, from the free to the more expensive. Rebates now are targeting the most expensive actions, so those costs are coming down rapidly. Shrink your energy needs. That step sounds sacrificial, but it's really not, because, for instance, the LED lights and Energy Star appliances of today are top notch. And programmable thermostats and smart plugs are just modern ways of turning off your stuff when you're not using it. Every home on this tour has crossed the bridge in their own way. And so today you'll see a great variety of the features mentioned here, like heat pumps and induction stoves. Next slide. Natural gas used to be called a bridge fuel because it was a bridge away from coal, and it was, but now it's pretty much a bridge to nowhere. The industry markets it as clean burning, but that's not even remotely true. Natural gas pollutes at every stage, from the well to your kitchen, where it's linked to asthma and respiratory disease. There are many ways to meet your energy needs with clean energy sources. Every year, EBCE is buying more renewables and making our power grid cleaner, and they're investing in big utility scale battery installations, like the one that's now in Jack London Square, which stores abundant solar energy, then distributes it when the sun goes down. I want you to get familiar with the concept of load shifting, which is a key strategy. It means using energy when it's cheap and abundant, like the middle of the day, and avoiding it when it's expensive and dirtier, which is peak hours when people come home from work and the sun is setting. And you can choose to charge devices or do laundry midday. That costs you nothing. Or you can program your thermostat and appliances to go idle during peak hours.
All right. And when thinking about the transition to all electric, it's critical that we also, of course, take into account power outages and their impact, particularly on marginalized communities, right? So while individuals with solar panels and batteries may be well prepared, being insulated from the outages and soaring utility expenses, we must also address the needs of those without such resources. Of course, the goal in the future is a future with equitable access to renewable energy solutions for everyone. However, until we achieve that, it is important that we discuss and implement strategies that promote equity and accessibility during blackouts. So here we have on this slide a few different options for this scenario. An alcohol burning camp stove can be used indoors with good ventilation. The Channing Copper Company makes induction stoves with batteries built in as a good option. Yeti's portable power station is essentially a big battery to run what you need. PG&E provides these free to medical baseline customers for power outages, so people who use medical equipment. You can buy an inverter that plugs into your car's 12-volt battery, string an extension cord to your house to keep the lights running and to charge essential devices. And then we also have a tank water heater. Those are well insulated. If you haven't recently depleted it, it can keep water hot for over a day if you use water sparingly. And then lastly, during power outages, PG&E has designated community resource centers with ADA accessible restrooms, device charging, Wi-Fi, bottled water, snacks, air conditioning or heating, ice, And in the East Bay, they're usually located at libraries, big churches, colleges, and Costco's at some times as well.
Rebecca, you're muted.
I realize that. Sorry about that. All right, let me start again. So we can't slow climate change if only some people can afford to transition off fossil fuels while millions of others are left behind, burdened with an increasingly expensive natural gas. This past winter's sky-high gas bills were a taste of what's to come. Government has to step in to help make the transition affordable. Thankfully, local, state, and now the federal government are stepping up. The state of California, the 9 Bay Area counties of Bayron, PG&E, and our community choice energy providers here in the East Bay Community Energy, EBCE, and MCE, are all offering rebates and programs to bring down costs. The Federal Inflation Reduction Act contains more rebates and tax credits to get gas out of your home and solar on your roof. For the first time last year, heat pumps actually outsold gas furnaces in the United States. This transition is gaining steam, and we want to help you figure out how to get on board, no matter what your situation is.
So this past year, I finally broke free of fossil fuels in my home. So I'm very excited to share my process and my house as the first video. As an experiment, I intentionally stayed on a 100 amp electric service to see if it could be done. And today we are lucky to have Tom Cabot answering questions in the Q&A and the chat, because his presentations are really what inspired me to electrify without upgrading my panel to 200 amps. So let's roll the video. Welcome to our home. I'm Amy.
I'm Jude. And I am Will, and this is our 1920 Oakland bungalow.
So when we were house hunting 10 years ago, we fell in love with this street because it has mature street trees, which brings in a lot of bird life. And also there were lots of kids living on the block, playing outside, and we have terrific neighbors. So come on in and let me show you what all we've done. One of the first things that we did as new homeowners was to get solar. I learned that I could get a leased solar system on my roof without spending a dime, so I impulsively jumped on that. Thankfully, it's panned out. I pay way less per kilowatt hour for electricity from my panels than I do from the utility company. For the last few years, I've been highly motivated to get natural gas out of my home. I think of fossil fuels as the Death Star. They are destabilizing the climate, polluting our air, soil, and water, and they also pollute our politics. The fossil fuel industry pumps millions of dollars into political movements that roll back civil rights, rip up the social safety net, and weaken democracy. The world I want to create and live in is the opposite of that. So the first thing that we did when we moved into this house is that we got insulation in the attic, which really helped because this house was very hot in the summer and really cold in the winter. My husband put up these ceiling fans. So we also needed window coverings, and so we chose these shades. They're called honeycomb or cellular shades, and they're actually very insulating. In my process of getting fossil fuels out of my house, one of the last things that I had to do was get a gas fireplace insert switched out with this electric. And we really liked the heat and the ambiance of the gas fireplace. So I bought this electric one, which has a little heating element that blows out of the back. I got this screen made from a Etsy vendor so that it can kind of obscure sort of the tackiness of a fake log. This is what it looks like at night. The unit casts flickering shadows that make it look like flames against the back of the firebox. So as part of electrifying our home, one of the big things that we needed to do is switch out our gas furnace. So we had a central gas-powered forced air furnace, and we just switched it out for a heat pump. Our system looks exactly the same inside the house. For instance, here's the cold air return that was part of the gas system, and now it's just part of the heat pump system. One of the things that you'll probably notice as you're going through my house is that I have a lot of items that I scavenged or got at thrift stores or found on curbs. I love scavenging, and it's part of kind of a zero waste mentality of the world just being full of material goods that should not be wasted and are still full of beauty and life. The very first thing that I did on my electrification journey was I switched out my gas stove. And this happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and my gas stove stopped working. And at that time, I was newly reading articles that had to do with studies linking gas stoves to asthma. And my guys have asthma and allergies, and so I was extremely motivated to make my indoor air quality better. But one of the things that I really like is that I really like the look and feel of knobs. So this was the cheapest induction stove that was available at the time. It's a Frigidaire, and it has been fantastic, and I would never go back. You'll notice that I have tiles on the floor and on the backsplash, and both of them are made by Fireclay Tile, which is a California-based company that's a B Corp, and with their tiles, they have a really high degree of recycled content. So this is a heat pump dryer, and heat pump dryers are ventless, so you don't have to vent it to the outside. The only difference is that a heat pump takes a little bit longer to dry your clothes, but it doesn't impact our lives at all. And with a ventless dryer, you have your typical lint trap that you're used to cleaning out, but then there's a second lint trap there at the bottom, and I clean that out. You know, a light will go on, and I'll clean it out every few weeks. This Blomberg set uses very little water and electricity, and I practice load shifting, which means that I try to run the dishwasher and laundry machines only when electricity is the cheapest. For me, that's the middle of the day when my solar panels are cranking. So this is a little clothes drying rack for inside. You know, on sunny days we can use a clothes drying rack outside, but if it's rainy, or let's say there's just one piece of clothing that I don't want to put in the dryer, then this little contraption is a nice little drying rack. So to get natural gas out of my home, I had to switch out my water heater and furnace and get an EV charger. So I needed to make more space in my electrical panel for those additional circuits. However, I did not upsize my electric service to 200 amps. I stayed on 100 amps. My old main panel sends most of the electric load to this new sub panel, which is just physically larger. Eric of All Electric California put my induction stove and EV charger on the same circuit using the simple switch, which is anchored in my crawl space. So if you want to electrify and people are telling you that you need to upsize to a 200 amp panel, take a minute and explore whether that's true. It could be that your electrician just hasn't heard about circuit sharing devices. You might want to pursue the strategy of just getting a bigger sub panel with more room for extra circuits. And I got a rebate for this electrical work because it was in preparation for my heat pumps. So let's go down to the basement where I can show you the heat pumps. This is my heat pump water heater. So this is the tank part, and the heat pump part is actually outside. A lot of other heat pump units just have the heat pump right on top. We didn't have enough clearance for the heat pump on top. These tanks are extremely insulated, so in a power outage, we can still get hot water for quite some time because it's like a giant thermos where it's just keeping water really hot for us. So this is in our crawl space, and this is where our gas furnace used to be, but now we have a heat pump system that both provides heat in the winter and cooling in the summer. And you can see that it also has a HEPA filter so that our indoor air stays clean on smoky or high pollution days. The outdoor part of the system is on the side of the house. And again, for this HVAC system, I got rebates from both Bayrin and Tech. Welcome to my backyard. When we first moved in, most of the backyard was paved with concrete. So one of the first things that we did was we went to Oakland's tool lending library and we borrowed a sledgehammer and a wedge, and we broke up all the concrete, and then we used the concrete to form these little retaining walls and also our raised bed. But if you have concrete that you want to get rid of in your own yard, consider using it for retaining walls. All of our backyard plants are on a drip irrigation system, and our next project is installing a gray water system so that we can reuse our laundry wastewater on our plants. In the meantime, I've installed a flume flow meter to track how much water we're using and from what source. It also detects leaks. EBMUD rebates are available for these. So for our plantings in our backyard, most of the plants that we have are either natives, fruit trees, or edibles. I want to show you my bicycle garage. During COVID, my husband built this bicycle garage because we use our bikes a lot and he commutes on his bike. And also during the early year of COVID, I bought an electric bicycle, a Rad Runner, which is very fun. So thank you so much for visiting my home. I've been doing these green home tours for 3 years now, and every single home that I've visited, I learned something new and I got inspired by something that the homeowner did. So I really hope that by seeing what I've done with my home, that you also get inspired to do some of these things. Okay.
Hey, Amy, that
Hi.
was really great. That was so fun. I just want to let folks know before I ask you a few questions that first there was a question about the videos. Everything will be posted on the East Bay Green Home Tour. So if you have to pop off early, you'll find everything there, and Amy will be sending that out to everyone who registered. And you can type your questions into the Q&A. We will try to answer as many as we can here, and then Amy will spend, well, actually, it's tough for Amy to spend some time answering them because she's our host, but we'll try to get back to you maybe after the event. So first, a question about that electric fireplace. Folks are wondering, does it still give off heat?
Yes.
And what kind is it? They're wanting to shop for one.
Yeah, so I don't love this, so I'm not going to give a hearty recommendation to this. But then I think if there's any product designers in the audience, this is an area where you really need to, somebody needs to step in and design a really nice fake electric fireplace. So it does give off heat, but what I had before was a gas insert, and the gas gave off like many thousands of BTUs, and electric ones just don't. So it's more like a space heater. It feels more like a space heater. And it's a Napoleon woodland.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I know, Amy, when I was searching around for an electric dryer, there weren't that many heat pump dryers on the market a few years ago. So we've got a question here. I know you actually love your heat pump dryer. They want to know, well, I know where you got it.
Yeah.
They want to know what brand and where perhaps you can find heat pump dryers.
Yeah, you can find them online from the big appliance retailers, but I think that you can also, I haven't checked lately to see if you can get them from our more local chains like Airport Appliance. This is a Blomberg, and I came to have it in a weird way where I had a friend that bought a set and he didn't want it anymore, but because he wanted an all-in-one machine that could fit in his closet. And so I got it for free. And it's a Blomberg, and he chose that set because he wanted like the tiniest draw of electricity. So I just, benefited from him moving on to something else that would fit in his closet.
Thanks, Amy. I know when I was looking, you can see them on the floor at Airport Appliance.
Okay,
they do sell them online at the big box stores. It may be harder to find a model out on the floor, but worth checking. This was during the pandemic, and now we have more inventory.
One thing that I know is that a lot of them are in the smaller size, although mine feels like it still accommodates a lot. So even though it's small, it is kind of deceptive. I think that there's one heat pump dryer on the market that is more the bigger size. I have a family of 3, and so the smaller one seems fine for us.
Amy, really important question here in our Q&A from Anita, wanting to know for the rebates that you were mentioning, we could see them on your video. How much time did you have to apply for them? And did you have to apply for them, or did your contractor do that for you?
That's a great question. I chose the same company to do both of my heat pumps, my water heater and my HVAC. And I intentionally chose a company that would process all those for me so that I wouldn't have to take on that. And I used All Things Good, and they have a, office administrator, somebody on their staff who is processing those for you.
Fantastic. We have time for more, or do we need to move on?
Let's move on, but
Okay.
I can jump down and type since I'm not working the slides this time.
Great. Yeah, there's definitely more questions for you in the Q&A.
Okay.
And great. Thanks so
Great.
much.
All right, so we're now going to go to our first sponsor message, and it's from Quit Carbon, which is kind of a, you need to get to know them, because if you want someone to hold your hand through this process, this is a free service. So, and we also have some Quit Carbon representatives today in the chat and the Q&A. So if you have any questions for them, you can definitely hit them up.
Quit Carbon is here to help homeowners leave fossil fuels behind and upgrade to an all-electric lifestyle. There are lots of reasons to switch: aging appliances, health hazards of gas stoves, or wanting to do your part for climate change. It can get overwhelming. Understanding your home's electrical infrastructure, vetting new contractors, all the rebates and incentives, it's basically a full-time job. But Quit Carbon makes it simple. By learning about your home, we craft you a free, personalized electrification plan, which maximizes your outcome and guides you through rebates and savings. Then we connect you with a vetted contractor who's a great fit for your project. Your clean energy home will be more comfortable, more valuable, and healthier for your family and your community. Just visit quitcarbon.com and book your free consultation. Quit Carbon is here to help homeowners leave.
All right, so that was Quit Carbon. Now we're going to go to our next home tour. And this next tour highlights Sasha's Oakland home. And Sasha got insulation, heat pumps, and a new electric panel without spending any money up front, using block power financing. East Bay Community Energy is now offering this through their Healthy Home program. And you pay no money up front, get the work done, and it's financed over 15 years with savings and rebates baked in. So let's take a look at this video.
Hi, my name is Sasha. Welcome to my home, and come on in so I can show you around. My name is Sasha Werblin. I've been in this home since 2014. I bought my home at that time, and I really was trying to be as close as possible to where I grew up, which is Temescal. This neighborhood is Hoover Foster, just a few blocks away. The house was built in 1908, and therefore needed a lot of support to be a little bit more sustainable. Before Block Power helped make my home more energy efficient, it was absolutely freezing in my house. And with climate change, the weather has been getting much colder in the Bay Area. So we use space heaters. And the cost of space heaters, the dangers of space heaters, it was quite unsafe. And so finally, my friend Mark let me know about a program to help weatherize my home, and I jumped on it because I definitely needed it and wanted to have a trusted person to help guide me through that process. I scheduled for them to come and do a home energy audit and a blower test just to see where all of the leaks in the home were, or the kind of heat was leaving the house, or where there was cold air coming into the house, to kind of gauge what needs to be fixed so the home was more energy efficient. After the energy audit, I received a report and we sat down and kind of talked through what they saw in the report. Based on that, then I was able to kind of understand what the cost might be and really prioritize the different energy efficient upgrades that they would be able to offer in my home. I chose a few things. One, getting insulation was critical. There was absolutely no insulation in the house. And getting a heating and cooling system so I no longer had to rely on space heaters. So this is my mini split. It provides heating and cooling. And since I have this, the warmer days are a little bit cooler, and the cold nights, oh my goodness, make a huge difference. And now I can actually be warm in my house. So you can see that there are kind of plastered holes throughout the house. That's where they actually opened holes in the walls and filled the entire wall with insulation. And then once it's done, they close the holes, replastered, and then I have the opportunity to paint in whatever way I choose. And the purpose of the insulation really is to keep heat inside the home so that it's not kind of drafting out. So it both protects the house from kind of the outside elements, and then also kind of maintains or keeps that heat inside. As part of working with Block Power and Revalue, I got my electric panel upgraded to a span. Come take a look. Ooh, fancy. It has an app where you can turn certain places in your home on and off just to be more energy efficient when you are out of town or maybe for other safety reasons. As you can see, the span panel has amazing lights inside so that you're able to see all of your electricity at any time of day. It has lots of extra safety features, and I think I also mentioned that there is an app that coincides with it that kind of helps educate you on your electricity and what to turn on and off depending on your needs. In the future, some big things actually, switching out the windows so that they're at least double pane. Same with my front door, which has a lot of draft, and then also getting some solar so that I can kind of balance out the electricity that I'm using with other types of solar power savings. A big reason why I was really attracted to this program is that I didn't have to put any money up front. It really was about paying for all of the energy upgrades on the back end once we saw some cost savings from the difference in what I was paying before versus what I'm paying after my energy bill. Thank you so much for coming to visit my home. I am so grateful that these essential upgrades happened in my house to make it livable, to make it cozy. And I would highly recommend, if you also don't have a lot of cash up front, to make your home more livable and more energy efficient, you should definitely look into this program.
Great. That was really great. And I know that Rupak is here from Block Power. Unfortunately, Sasha couldn't join us. And maybe if Danae or McNeely, if you could pin Rupak for us, I see your video on. Thank you so much. I'm taking a peek in the Q&A to see if we have questions. So the first one is that says, no money up front. That just sounds unbelievable. So you could tell us, how does the Healthy Home and the Block Power work, and who's eligible to participate?
Hey, Rupak, you're muted.
Thank you. That
There we go.
most famous phrase of the Zoom era.
Yes.
Happy Saturday, everyone. Thank you for joining. Apologies for dialing in from a car today. But great question. So the way that we've set up the program is a couple of different things. So we're administering a exclusive set of incentives, first of all, with East Bay Community Energy. So for folks that are within certain sets of area median income, you may qualify up to 10K of exclusive incentives on top of other public incentives for electrification, remediation, other measures. Second, through the East Bay Community Energy Program, we are administering a set of financing, and that financing is actually at a 5.5% interest rate and zero money down. We all know that electrification can be expensive, so this set of financing is really intended to make electrification accessible. And then finally, Block Power as a company, we broadly have the same sort of financing available through our own financing facilities. And again, no money down up front and 15 to 20-year lease to own. Basically, you're leasing the equipment. No liens placed on your property, unlike previous waves of clean energy financing. So those are sort of stack of financing that's available to help make electrification more affordable and accessible.
Thanks so much, Rupak. And I apologize, I was getting some back-end questions here. So I know you're working with East Bay Community Energy for this program. What's the geographic area in order to be able to access this program?
Great question. So it's Alameda County, excluding the town of Alameda. And we also, the city of Tracy is also included within that program.
Great. So it sounds like, is it anyone who's an EBCE in the EBCE territory, which I know is now grown beyond Alameda County? That's wonderful.
That's right. Anyone who's an EBC territory and a customer.
Great. Fantastic. Let's see. I'm just checking our Q&A to see.
Actually, could I jump in and ask him an ad? So one of the things that I learned that's pretty cool is that, a lot of times people, for instance, can't get solar because their roof needs to be replaced, or they have some other deferred maintenance or repair thing that really needs to take priority. So does Block Power programs like the Healthy Home, can they roll in things like a new roof or mold remediation?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the most innovative aspects of this program with East Bay Community Energy, is that both the incentives and financing cover remediation, so mold, asbestos removal, things of that sort. Next, energy efficiency. So as we move up the chain to electrification, so energy efficiency could be light bulbs, water flow fixtures, etc. And then finally, electrification. Electrical panels, appliances. So it really, both the incentives and financing are very flexible to help cover all aspects of remediation, energy efficiency, and electrification.
That's terrific. Well, thanks for joining us. We're now going to go to a quick ad for Block Power, which really is a QR code if you guys want to zoom into Block Power's site. And also I'm going to play another ad too, which is span, because one of the things you saw with Sasha's home is that she got a span panel, which is just a very beautiful, feature-rich next generation electric panel. And so we also, I believe, have a span rep. If anybody is curious about her electric panel, can answer your questions as well. So McNeely, if you could go ahead and roll both of the ads. Danae, would you like to introduce our presenter?
Yep. All right. So our first presenter is going to be Doug McKenzie. So Doug McKenzie actually used to teach Solar 101 classes here at the Ecology Center. He served on the board of Sunwork and NorCal Solar. Big changes have been happening in the world of rooftop solar, so we're happy for him to be here. People have wondered, especially lately, is it still worth it? Well, the short answer is yes, and Doug's here to give you a fuller picture. Welcome, Doug.
I'm going to share the slides for Doug, so give me a second to pull them up.
Okay. Doug, are you unmuted? Do we have Doug?
There we go. Now, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh,
Hi,
great.
Doug.
Great, that's good. Great to be here. Thank you all for inviting me. I've got 15 minutes and there's a lot of material, so I'll go pretty quickly. So let me say again that you can put the questions in the Q&A here, and also that email on the front page I'll also give later. You can always email me any questions you have any time and I'll follow up to those. Okay, so next slide, please.
Doug, are you still there?
Yes, I guess I had to unmute again. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just say really quickly again, there are two Californias. One is the state as a whole, where rooftop solar is an excellent source, and for individuals it's mixed. So that's what I'll be covering here. So next slide, please. This is one slide just saying how great rooftop solar is, and it's safe. We have a lot of it. We have great electricity here. Doesn't create wildfires. Doesn't require long distance power lines. No environmental trade-offs. So desert solar is a great thing also, but it's much less great because you sacrifice turtles and water and other things, as well as have to build those long distance transmission lines. So rooftop solar is the great thing. And so next slide, let's get into it. So it sometimes makes sense now. And there was a big change that went into effect on April 15th, which was net energy metering 3. It's now called net billing. It used to be called net metering or net energy metering, and it's been in place for many years, but they shifted now to NEM 3. And so that's in place now. So if you got your job into the queue before then, you're good to go, which if you're looking at that chart, 2023 is missing. And that chart says the bottom blue is residential rooftop solar. It's kind of going up and up and up. 2023 it'll probably be very large because of all the backlog that was gotten ready prior to the switch date. But then 2024, we have no idea. The thrust of NEM 3 is it reduces payment for your exported solar by a lot. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's about 75%, maybe 80%. And so your payback time, the economic investment, is a lot longer, much less uncertain too, for complicated reasons. And it's really sort of hard to tell now, but most solar advocates think that net metering 3 is going to damage the rooftop solar industry pretty badly. We'll have to see how that goes, but there are a lot of possibilities that I'll talk about. And so why we undermined our solar leadership is an interesting story, but not going to go into that here at all. So ask me something if you got a question and I'll answer it later. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a short summary about the solar economics. couple things to know are simple payback. So that's basically how much does your entire solar system cost now? And then you divide that number by your annual electric bill savings. And that gives you how many years it'll take you to get your money back. That's not a simple thing to do necessarily, but that's a common term in use. And the other one is levelized cost of energy, LCOE, people talk about, and this is used widely across all of the energy industry. And it's your total system cost divided by your expected lifetime energy generation, kilowatt hour generation. And it's actually not that difficult to figure out how much energy your solar is going to produce during its lifetime. It's not that big a deal to do that. It's not simple, but it's not that hard. And so those are probably the two most important ways to think about solar as an economic investment. You can check your electric bill and make sure not to include the gas, because PG&E has a G in it, and to find out how much it cost in your total kilowatt hours used during the last 12 months. This is not the estimation to the lifetime, but how much you did use. And then you get this number, your cents per kilowatt hour. That's how we pay PG&E. You know, how much are they charging us per kilowatt hour? The Bay Area average is about 33 cents a kilowatt hour. It varies a lot depending on when you use it or how much you use and all kinds of other things. So that's just kind of a coarse grain average. One thing to consider about your payback time and levelized cost of energy is how much is the PG&E rate going to rise over the next 25 years. And it used to be, when we were sort of more stable before climate change started to hit, that people, you know, salespeople would make an estimate that would be 6% or 3%, or the conservative people would use 0%. But it's likely that the PG&E rates will rise a lot more than that. They've been as high as 20% rise in a year. There are wildfires to pay for. There are all kinds of things. So it's complicated. But the thrust is that the faster PG&E increases their rates, the better your solar investment will be. I want to mention a power purchase agreement and a lease. So Amy mentioned that she'd gotten a lease for her solar on her home, and it was great. It saved a lot of money, so that's good. A lease is one way to get solar non-down payment. Also, a power purchase agreement. The basic thing is lease, you pay a monthly amount that's knowable in the same. Power purchase agreement, you pay for the kilowatt hours you used, so it'll vary a little bit. They're a little bit different. They're mostly kind of the same, and you can choose your terms. You can get a zero down system, or you can fully prepay it or partial prepay it. It just depends on who the vendor is, and there's a lot of variety. Good stuff. Then the more to explore means this is a complicated subject. I'm going to spend one slide and then we'll move on. Once again, ask me anything, anytime. Next slide, please. So at first glance, solar doesn't make sense, because when you want to use it and the sun isn't shining, when you want to use the grid, I should say, energy, then they make it kind of cheap only when the sun isn't shining. When the sun is shining, it's expensive. And so when the sun is shining, grid energy costs much less, meaning that your solar, you can't export it out there and get much money for it. I misspoke there, sorry. And the main thing is now PG&E pays much less for your solar than they charge you for grid energy. And that's what this chart is about. The export price down there, the darker gray, that's what they'll pay you when you send your energy out. That's generally very low, with a couple of exceptions out there in the 1920, meaning the 19 and 20 hours of the day, 7 p.m., 8 p.m. And then the light gray is how much you pay for it. So you can see you're almost always paying more. You always are paying more for it. Sometimes you'll pay less than at some hour of the day than you'll get for it. But mostly you just pay a lot more for your grid energy than you get for your solar. So it doesn't make sense in that sense. So next slide, there are some great options. And the first option, and the big one, is batteries. And because of that last chart on the last page, where grid energy costs a lot more during certain hours of the day than others, then what the batteries do, as Amy mentioned, is you can load shift. You can store power when your solar is giving it to you, and then you can use it when the grid is costing a lot. There's some complexity things to think through with batteries. Maximum battery power, that's how many kilowatts it will produce and how much energy You may need, it's in kilowatt hours. So if you've got like an induction stove, that might be using 5,000 watts. So if you want to use batteries to fuel that, so to speak, that's kind of a high demand. So on. So do you want to back up your full house if you're doing backup power for batteries, or just the critical loads? How long do you want to do that? You can change settings. So maybe you want more of your battery to be used for backup than for load shifting if there's a storm coming and so on. So it's kind of complicated. Then also equip different additional equipment that you might need, transfer switches and new circuits maybe and so on. And the cost varies a lot, as we saw on earlier slides, but a rough estimate is if you want 1 Tesla Powerwall, which is a big size bolt-on battery. You can see that in the picture there, the large white thing to the left side of that guy's desk. It's maybe 10,000 bucks plus or minus, but it could be much more if you need a lot of extra electrical work done too. The batteries are eligible now for the 30% federal tax credit. That's thanks to the IRA bill that was passed by the Biden administration. There's a thing called the SGIP, self-generation incentive program, which varies a lot. It's kind of complicated. Make sure that your installer does the paperwork for you because it's kind of messy, but that rebate can be fairly large if you're low income or in a high fire zone hazard. And then finally, virtual power plants are something to look into. I don't have enough time here to talk about them, but it's a way to, the PG&E will kind of further incent your battery purchase. Next slide, please. There's this interesting thing, which is EVs have huge batteries. So General Motors Chevy Bolt has you have 65, 66 kilowatt hour batteries now, and a Tesla Powerwall is about 13.5 kilowatt hours. So the more than 4 Tesla Powerwalls worth of battery capacity in that little car. Another thing that's valuable for using the EV battery is you can't drive your Powerwall to a public charging station, but you can. So in a lot of these outages, we're locally, our house is out, but you can go to a public charging station, charge up your Bolt, and then drive your house. So that's the notion of EVs as sources of electricity here. So there are just a few models now, and the choices are expanding. I'm going to move along quickly here, if I may. So next slide. There's community choice aggregation, which is your East Bay Community Energy or MCE Clean Energy, or a couple of them. And so they service most of us. We get our power through the PG&E lines, but the CCA programs generate the power. And so they're one thing that's worth a lot of time, more than I have here, is check with your CCA as to how much they'll support rooftop solar. It is up to them to some extent, and there'll be different versions of that. And so you can influence that, so push them. Next slide, please. So community solar, this is the sense that there's some solar array out there somewhere, not on your roof, but that you own a piece of it, so to speak. So it's roofless home solar. You don't have to have any space for roof. It'd be too steep, too shady, or whatever. If you're a renter, so on, this is great also. So the array is far away, but the value goes to you. Next slide, please. Community solar, in that graph I showed earlier about how the residential solar is increasing with the blue band. There's a green band in it that's very tiny, and that's because California has not done a good job with it at all. But a new bill, which was signed last year, AB 2316, looks like it's pretty good. There are a lot of benefits there. Once again, check with your CCA. And then PG&E's community solar, basically, nope, it's on hold, waitlisted, or it's not available yet. Next slide, please. So there's free solar from Grid Alternatives. If you're low income and you live in a certain area and so on, low to moderate income in a certain area, then they will install it for you for free. And it's not a lease. You actually own the solar once they install it. So they get money from foundations and the government, and then they'll put it on for you. And that's amazing if you qualify. You can also you can learn about solar by volunteering on some of the installations. You can go to Bay Area Sun Shares, a yearly program that is available, and they give 10 to 15% roughly discount, and they vet the installers so that they're good and trustworthy, and that's a good place to go. And then finally, if you have a small energy system, you can try out Sunwork, which is a nonprofit residential, and they also install solar on nonprofits, but they install solar on residences, and it's nonprofit. So you have to meet the requirements for having a small system. This information. Next slide, please. Other options is you can put solar panels on, say, a shed, and you can park your EV under the shed, and it has nothing to do with PG&E or anything else. You can just kind of use it for a standalone use. And that's not very popular now, but depending on how net metering 3 goes, it might become that. A portable solar, you can pair it with a battery, have a solar panel out on your patio and a battery to it. Once again, you can get an inverter from your EV and so on. You can buy batteries from PG. They have programs and other things. I'm running a little late, so next slide, please. The future home solar will get better forever. If you get depressed about it now, it'll come back. I don't know how long it'll take, years, whatever, but we'll get it back. We go to microgrids with rooftops, so solar plus batteries equals local power. And once again, check out virtual power plants, will be a big deal. Fight, 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 reverse the NEM decision. There are lawsuits being filed. Watch out for AB 205, which may further damage solar. And then learn about the industry disruption that's going on. It's taking a big, long time. So the more you learn, the more you know, the more you can fight back. And next slide, please. That's it. I'm out of time. Feel free to go to my website, Lights on Solar. Write me at Doug@lightsonsolar. Also Q&A here. I'll be here after my talk. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much, Doug. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So our next home tour, the next home belongs to Kira in Berkeley. And this home has very sophisticated water conservation strategy, thanks to Dig Cooperative, as well as sustainable material choices in a major remodel. So we're about to see that video.
Hi, my name's Kira, and we've lived in this house for 20 years now this fall. We moved from Seattle, and we really enjoyed this house because it had a garage, which in Berkeley was really rare. It has a big flat backyard, and the previous owners had opened up the floor plan. It's a 100-year-old house, but they had done a partial update in 2001. Come on in, let's take a look. So over the years, we tried to make repairs or improvements that were both community and eco-conscious. For example, in 2007, we installed solar panels when we heard there were rebates for working with solar companies to do that. We try to make decisions in our lifestyle to conserve or minimize our use of energy. Living in the flats, we ride our bikes around Berkeley, and we ride bikes in BART to commute. And then when we make changes to the house, we try to learn what the newest things are for conservation. So as part of our remodel in 2018, we replaced all of our canned lights and other fixtures with LED. We updated our insulation in the walls, in the roof, and in our basement when we finished the basement. And we also replaced any windows that we were replacing with double pane windows. When we first moved into the house, we were told we would have to reline the fireplace. So instead of doing that at the time, we also decommissioned the fireplace and use it as an aquarium so that we don't add to particulates in our area. So one other thing our architect recommended when we did the remodel in 2018 was to use this more matte floor finish when we refinished the wood floors. These were the original wood floors from this 100-year-old house, and we extended them back into the new part of the kitchen, and we used non-toxic refinish that's a substitute for polyurethane. It's both less toxic and it's a lot easier to repair if you need to refinish only sections of a room, which is really helpful in a room like this. So this is our kitchen that we remodeled again in 2018. We worked with a really great group to build the bamboo cabinets. They're called Ecology, and they're based in Emeryville. They built the cabinets here for the kitchen, as well as our 2 bathrooms upstairs. A company called Plyboom makes all different patterns of this. So it's all laser cut, and it comes in like 4 plywood sheets, basically like a 4x8 foot sheet that you can do whatever you want with. We chose bamboo because it's both indestructible and it's a more green product. They've been super durable, and you can quickly refinish them if you get watermarks or other dings on them. Our architect recommended recycled concrete tiles for the floor. They're also very compatible with radiant floor heat. That has helped immensely with indoor allergies, seasonal allergies, and makes for really even, comfortable heat in the house. When we did the remodel in 2018, we had a dual fuel stove, a gas top and an electric oven. This is an induction range that we just had installed, and we've been using it for about a month and really like it. When we first moved in, they had remodeled the kitchen. The ceiling was flat, and the entire middle of the kitchen above this 36-inch range was a vent that went up through the roof, and it sounded like an airplane taking off. So one of the things that was really nice about remodeling the kitchen was being able to take that vent out and install this backdraft vent that goes away when you're not using it and really frees up the visual space in the kitchen, but works to vent food odors and other things out through the floor. So one of the things our architect tried to do in 2018 was take advantage of passive solar to keep this main floor warm. We also, because it's south-facing, do get a lot of sun in the summer, so we installed shades over these windows that use recycled materials from banners at the Moscone Center that our architect had in his basement. In the bathroom, we have more of the passive solar with a solar tube that lets light into this darker north side of the house. We also installed low flow fixtures. We flush the toilets with water that we collect on the roof, so rainwater. And then the water that comes from the sink goes out to the yard through a gray water system. So we'll take a look at that system outside. So this is the side of our house. This is our solar system, which is, again, from 2007, so it's pretty old, but it's still chugging along. And then this is where we collect rainwater from the roof, and it takes it underground to the holding tanks in the back, which we'll show you. So our rainwater system gathers water from both sides of the roof. We saw the south side over there, and then the north side is collected through this pipe, and it comes up into these 2 1,200-gallon tanks. The water then is pumped out through the pipes at the top, goes through this filter, and then goes into the house to flush toilets and do laundry. So we wash our clothes using the rainwater from the tanks. This allows you to not only use the rainwater when your yard is dry, so that would basically be gathering it through the wet season and then using it during the dry season. It allows you to use the water all throughout the winter when you're getting repeated refills. And so it lets you kind of maximize the volume that you can store over a longer period of time. So earlier we saw the showers and sinks upstairs. The water from those, the gray water from those, comes out to this receptacle and then gets pumped out to this north side of the yard. And then along this side of the yard is where the sinks and shower irrigate, and this side of the yard is where the laundry irrigates from the gray water system. When we first moved in, there was weeds and a couple of trees along the side, so it was sort of a blank slate, and we really focused on food production and kids over the years. So we planted a lot of different types of fruit trees along the edges and used Ann Ralph's grow a little fruit tree method of keeping them small enough to harvest. We have garden beds and then edibles kind of punctuated throughout. Our other plantings we try to make butterfly or hummingbird friendly. So for food waste and yard waste, we have a compost bin. We also have a worm bin for just the food scraps, and then some things go to the chickens. You'll notice in a few places we have things built out of what's called these steel skeletons. So it's sort of the leftovers, the waste product after they make something at a steel yard. We built this arch out of 4x8 foot pieces of the steel skeleton and a privacy screen up on our deck. There's also a couple of little trellises around the yard where we attached it to C-channels and use it as trellis. So we use our rainwater to wash our laundry. And you can see at the back of the laundry closet, there's a valve, we can choose whether that water then goes out to the gray water system that irrigates the south side of the yard. Or if we want to use soaps or bleach that we don't want going to the yard, we can turn the valve and have it drain to the sewer. So we had a lot of solid concrete paths coming up and around up to the front door and then along the side of the house, as well as the driveway. And as we needed to make repairs or replace them over time, we made sure we replaced them with DG or permeable pavers to allow rainwater to permeate into the earth rather than running off into the street. Thank you for visiting my house. We have appreciated learning from other people over time, the kinds of things they've done. So I hope we had some ideas that might be helpful to you. Don't be afraid to ask questions and stay curious about what's out there.
I don't know if anyone, hi.
Sounds like there's some background noise. Okay, there we go.
There we go. We're just waiting. So that was an amazing tour. Unfortunately, Kira can't be with us, but we are really lucky because, and let me, if I mispronounce it, correct me. Is it Jeff Halton? Oh, you're on mute.
Unmute myself. It's Jeff.
Jeff, my apologies.
Yeah,
Jeff
no
Holton,
problem.
who is the architect of that just gorgeous remodel. Jeff, as I understand it, you also have a gray water system. So you're pretty up to speed on Kira's system. So we can ask away. Yeah. I'm taking a look into the Q&A, but I'm just curious. There's a lot of questions about the specifics of what you used. With that water system, if I understand, what if we have a dry year? I mean, is there any chance that the toilets are gonna like not flush in a drought year?
No, because there's a three-way valve that allows you to go back to city water, and essentially you run with rainwater for as long as you can. And in a good year like this, especially a year where you get spring rains, you can push it further along. And at some point you go to flush the toilet and it doesn't refill. And it's like, oh, I better go back and turn my little three-way valve. I think the video showed it very simple. It's like a T-shaped thing and you just flip it back. In my house, well, I could go on and on. My house was done 16 years ago and it was under an earlier code and it was a lot more restrictive then, and we have to have an air gap that EBMA required, but I don't think that's required anymore. They just flip it back and forth.
That's great. I'm a lot of questions about the specific things. I know we've got someone's working on this, but the gray water, is that stored? Was that the big tank? No, that was, or was that that was the rainwater?
The big tanks are the rainwater. Gray water, you basically want to store for as short a time as possible because it has a lot of stuff in it, right? And the system in my house, on which this one was kind of, it was like a new and improved version. My house, we don't have any kind of storage or filtration. It just goes straight into mulch beds and a constructed wetlands. My house was on the Green Home Tour a long time ago. You can look it up maybe. But this one, I believe there is a sand filter, but there's no storage per se. It's just held for a little bit and then distributed out into their garden.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you know what they use for the countertops and backsplashes? I think I heard in the video that maybe there was some concrete, or so that was the floor.
I think we ended up going with just an engineered stone. We aspired to use the sort of custom concrete that is a really beautiful, locally crafted material. But that stuff has gotten so expensive. And so we're using the concrete, the engineered stone, which has a pretty decent recycled content. It's post-industrial recycled. And I see the comments about the noise. I really apologize. I tried to find my way to a quiet cafe, but it's a noisy cafe. So
it happens.
I guess I could mute when I'm not talking.
That's okay. We're just glad to have you. And Amy, I know, are we getting short on time or
yeah, let's take well, actually, why don't we have Jeff just drop down into the Q&A and answer people's questions, because I assume there's probably a lot of questions on this home.
Yeah, a lot of there's questions, and people are just doing a lot of shout outs for the fire clay tile, which I believe, Amy, you said that you used in your home as well.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks so much.
Sure. And now we're going to go to a sponsor, and the sponsor is Harvest Thermal. And I just want to mention that with Kira's home, she has radiant floor heating, and the Harvest Thermal is a very unique heat pump system that actually can work with radiant floor heating, as well as, all other kinds of applications. So let's take a look. And also we have Harvest Thermal reps that are active today if you have any questions about this system.
Electric cars are a game changer for the climate, but our homes also produce a lot of carbon emissions, especially gas furnaces and hot water heaters. So what if your heat could run off a battery too? Now it can. Harvest Thermal's all-electric thermal battery system heats your home and water while reducing carbon emissions by up to 90%. How does it work? Harvest Thermal runs its heat pump when electricity is cheapest and cleanest and stores that heat for later use. So, when electricity is more expensive and dirty, your system just uses the heat you're already storing, keeping you comfortable around the clock and cutting your heating bills by a third. Harvest Thermal. Turn off the gas, turn on the comfort.
Like I said,
Electric cars.
I'm sorry, if you have any questions about the Harvest Thermal system, please ask in the Q&A or the chat. And our next home is Paul, and it's Paul Barraza's Berkeley home, which is best described as DIY net zero. And we have Arlene Baxter of the Bridge Association of Realtors Climate Action Committee, and she's in the video interviewing Paul, who is a home inspector, to get his best tips for new home buyers.
I'm Paul Barraza. I'm a home inspector and I am the owner of this house. We bought this 1916 house in 2006.
And I'm Arlene Baxter. I'm a realtor with Red Oak Realty, and I'm also the founding member of the Climate Action Committee. And I'm going to be talking with Paul about various issues that home buyers and sellers should be thinking about when they buy an older home.
All right, so come on in. Let's check out the house.
Okay.
We started our energy retrofit in 2020. Instead of taking our family vacation in the pandemic, our family and friends re-roofed our house, and then we had solar installed. Later, we did electric appliances, and last winter, when everyone was complaining about the high energy rates because the gas prices went up, we actually had no idea. So something new home buyers should think about is that there are tax incentives, a 30% tax credit that'll be good for this year and next year.
So Paul, I know you did a lot of work in the attic. What are the things that homeowners can take advantage of whenever you're accessing your attic?
Yeah, so when we did the roofing, we needed to tear all the insulation out, and that was a great opportunity to do air sealing and as well as get rid of the old knob and tube wiring. Once those two things were taken care of, then we could blow in a really thick layer of cellulose insulation that covered everything over and gave us about an R50 insulation level.
And have you already experienced any change in comfort from that?
Absolutely. It's a lot more comfortable, and the temperature swings throughout the day. Like in the middle of the day, it doesn't get too warm, and at night it doesn't get too cold.
Excellent. So one of the things that many East Bay homeowners love are their classic Wedgwood gas stoves. I understand that, Paul, your wife had one and loved it. Tell us a story of how you convinced her to move away from that and to an induction stove.
The Wedgwood stove we had for years, we loved it, and then I got a low-level carbon monoxide alarm to detect the lower levels of carbon monoxide, and when we would run the range, we'd put something on the cooktop, the alarm kept going off, and that kind of unnerved my wife, and that definitely helped us move along to the new induction range, which we love as well.
What are the things that you particularly like about working with induction?
Well, I love how responsive it is. When you're cooking, it's super responsive, it's fast to boil, it also cools off really fast, it's easy to clean, and I really like not breathing gas fumes when I'm cooking.
So sellers, if you already have a gas stove in place, please don't replace it. Let the buyers make that decision. And for home buyers, if you buy a home that has an older gas stove, this is an opportunity to move to induction, really consider your options, and take advantage of some wonderful rebates that are available right now.
As part of our electrification project, I ran a 240 volt circuit so we could have an electric dryer that we use instead of our old gas dryer. And when it's sunny out, we also have a laundry line that we can use.
So I know, Paul, when you moved in, you had a single gas source of heat and wanted to move to electric. Tell us about that evolution.
So we had an old wall furnace that was here at the front of the house. It did a good job of heating around the front, but then in the back of the house, we couldn't get any heat. So when we were going all electric, we wanted to do a heat source that worked for the whole house. It was much more efficient. So we went with a ducted mini split. Part of the reasons we wanted a ducted system is so we could have a filter, because in the last couple of years, we've had some significant wildfires, and being trapped in the home, not being able to get out without having a good way to filter the air. So our new system has a MERV 16 filter to help filter the air. It produces heat for the whole house, and the efficiency is about 400% efficient versus about 50 for the old wall furnace.
So we're here in Paul's bathroom, and by law in California, all water fixtures should be low flow. The standard for the toilet is 1.28 gallons per flush. But Paul, tell us about the choice you made, which is even more water efficient.
Yeah, this is a Niagara conservation toilet, and it uses 0.8 per flush, so it saves quite a bit of water. In addition, I've installed a recirculation pump that can be activated here, and that way you don't have to wait for hot water in the morning and waste water. Before I put the pump in, I would have to wait 70 seconds for the hot water to arrive at the faucet. After I install the pump, I hit the button, do my normal bathroom activities, and once I turn it on, it takes only 5 seconds for the hot water to arrive. Recently, we got a bidet seat that also has a heated component to it. So I was curious, being the home inspector, how much energy it was using. So I put this kilowatt monitor to see, and it was using more than I thought. So I ended up getting, this was what is called a CASA plug, and it works just as a normal switch, but it also is Wi-Fi enabled. So we can set a schedule where it turns on only in the morning or the night, or you can just use your phone to turn it on and off. So that way our heated bidet seat isn't on all day long. Here in the basement, we have a hot water recirculation pump, and that's what recirculates the water when we hit the switch in the bathroom.
So we're now here in Paul's basement, and we see that there's a heat pump water heater. Most people still have gas water heaters, and we're in this transition period where the laws will be changing in the Bay Area and phasing out gas over time. But right now, there are a lot of plumbers, electricians, salespeople of water heaters that are not quite up to speed. So tell us your experience with the heat pump and the choices that you made.
Originally, we had a tankless water heater on the outside, and we wanted to go all electric, so we put the heat pump water heater in. And we needed to run a 240 volt circuit because this does both heat pump as well as electric resistance. I've been using it only on the efficiency mode because I want to get the most efficiency out of it.
So we know that the technology of these water heaters especially is changing rapidly. One of the objections I've heard is about noise. What has been your experience with this one?
There is a hum to it, but it's not that loud. And this is a couple years old, and I know the newest generation, the current heat pump water heaters are very quiet. Basically equivalent to like a Bosch dishwasher. So if you can live with that noise in your kitchen, you could live with a similar noise in the basement.
And the technology is changing. There are now 120 volt water heaters as well that are heat pumps.
The outdoor unit for the heat pump is under the deck.
So a big question that people have when they're thinking about switching to electric is whether or not they're going to need a panel upgrade. We hope that in some cases it will not be necessary using newer technologies, smart switches, changes in behavior. But in your case, Paul, it sounded like there were multiple reasons that switching your panel and upgrading made sense. Why don't you tell us about those?
Yeah, so we had an old 100 amp panel. It was old enough that there were some issues with the breakers not working properly. So we definitely wanted a new panel. If we're getting a new panel, we're just going to go ahead and get a 200 amp, so we have plenty of space for whatever future upgrades we wanted. We actually got the panel as part of our solar installation. I was getting quotes from other contractors for getting the new panel for about $5,000 $1,000 or more. As part of the solar installation, it was only about $2,000. So if you're thinking about getting a new panel and you're also thinking about solar, doing them together can give you significant cost savings.
One of the main concerns that people have with going solar and all electric is what happens in a power outage. And we also had a lot of unusual rains this year. So tell us about your newest addition to the electrification of your home.
Yeah, just yesterday we had this Neovolta battery installed. And one of the primary reasons is that in the winter we have a sump pump system, and if the power goes out, we don't have a sump pumps, and our basement can get water inside.
So in addition to just power outages, how is this helping you on a daily basis?
Well, it's during the day when we're at work, it's taking power from our solar panels and storing it in the battery. In the evening, when the rates are high, we're using the battery for everything. All the circuits in the house are using the battery to run. And then if we need a little bit extra electricity from the grid, we can get some electricity from the grid as well.
So thank you, Paul, for sharing your home with us and all of the electrification that you've done here. It seems like you really benefited from having a plan.
I had a plan, and I knew I wanted to go net zero. And so I kind of created a roadmap with the help of a consultant, say, hey, these are the things I wanted to do. And that enabled me to do a lot of the work myself because I knew the things that I could tackle. For certain things like putting the solar panels on or blowing in the insulation, I had contractors come out and do it. But having that long-term plan of where I wanted to start and end helped me bundle things together. For example, the solar and the electrical panel, doing all the attic upgrades together with the wiring, air sealing, and insulation. And then that plan helped me get to the end and create a net zero home.
Okay, do we have Paul here today with us?
I saw Paul on the panelist list. We might just
Yes.
need to spotlight Paul. Just wait.
There
Oh,
he
I
is.
see Paul. Paul's coming up.
Hello.
Hey, Paul.
He's
Hi.
emerging.
Yes.
There's a complicated back end happening here. So Paul, that was so great. Before I just jump in and start asking you questions, someone put something in the Q&A, which I'd like everyone to hear. So this person, Anne, mentioned that the gas water heater in their home died last week, and the contractor installed a loaner until they can make a plan, and there are more rebates coming in August for heat pump water heaters. So I just wanted to throw that out to everyone. It's a great tip. And then for you, Paul, we've got a question about the on-demand water heater circulator in your bathroom.
Yes.
Burr is wondering, how noisy is that?
You don't hear it at all. I mean, the pump is super quiet. When I hit the switch, you could barely hear anything at all. There's a light that actually for one of the switches will tell you when the pump is running and when it turns off. It's almost actually so quiet sometimes I can't remember if I turned it on or not.
That's great. And I also heard you mention in your tour that your heat pump water heater just has a low hum. I also got mine earlier and it was noisy. And so I'm hearing you say that they are getting quieter as the years progress.
Exactly. So that's the big complaint from the homeowners. So the manufacturers have responded, and their number one goal is to make them as quiet as possible.
Okay. I'm seeing some questions in here about your battery. So tell us a little bit more about this supplemental battery, and if you know, like how many kWh, what's its capacity?
Yeah. So Neovolta is a newer brand of battery. They're a company based out of San Diego. It's a 14.4 kilowatt hour, so it's slightly larger than a Tesla Powerwall. It uses a LiPo battery, which is a lithium iron phosphate, which actually has better performance characteristics than a lithium ion. The one downside is that it's heavy, but when it's a house battery backup, the weight doesn't matter. So all the loads, all loads except for our kitchen range go to that panel. So if the power were to go out, we'd have access to our heating, our water heating, sump pumps, all the other things that we need in the house.
That's fantastic, Paul. And if you can stay on afterwards, there's some questions about like the budget and the cost for this type of work, and you can type them in. A number of people are asking if this is going to be, if these recordings will be shared. And I will just say again, yes, if you registered, you will receive an email saying that the recordings are available through the East Bay Green Home Tour website. And Amy, how are we doing on time?
I think it's probably time for Paul to drop down into the Q&A and see if he can answer any things by typing. So Paul's, one thing that was cool about Paul's place is that he did so much because he had a lot of DIY projects, and he bundled things. If you are not a DIY person or don't have time to be, but you want to bundle and get a bunch of things done at once, this next sponsor message, these guys are a really good contractor that can do your soup to nuts.
Thanks, Amy. Yes, our next sponsor up, which we are very, very grateful for, Got Watts. Got Watts is a proud sponsor of today's tour. They're your local smart electrification expert serving the greater East Bay area. From ultra efficient heating and cooling systems to grid independent solar power, battery systems, and smart electrical panels, they've got you covered when it comes to smart electrification. With over a decade of experience, Got Watts is the go-to contractor for challenging electrification projects on unique homes like Eichler's, mid-century moderns, craftsmen's, and more. Today, most homeowners prefer to avoid the hassle of dealing with multiple contractors for each aspect of their project. So Got Watts has the experience, the skill, and local knowledge to combine your retrofit projects into a single hassle-free job. On last year's Green Home Tour, Rick used Got Watts for his whole home electrification project, including a new heat pump system, solar, and batteries on his Rock Ridge Craftsman. Accelerate your transition to comfortable, self-reliant living with Got Watts.
Thanks, Danae. So now we're going to show a video we made featuring East Bay residents giving you tips on how they cook their family recipes using induction cooktops. So let's roll it.
The East Bay is a beautiful place. Part of what makes it so special is our people and our food. For hundreds of years, people from all over the world have come to call the East Bay home, and they've brought their rich cultures with them, including family recipes. Today, many East Bay residents are switching out their gas stoves for induction ranges and cooktops, driven by three main motivations. They want to fight climate change, protect their health, and improve their cooking experience. Let's see what kind of induction stoves and cooktops people are using in the East Bay and how they cook the foods that are part of their cultural heritage.
Hi, I'm Jeannie in El Cerrito. This is my new induction stove. It's from the GE Cafe series. I love having this new stove. I've been making a lot of soups and broths with it. Vietnamese noodle soups are famous for their long cooked and very flavorful broths. Those require hours of gentle simmering, and there's really no shortcut. I love cooking pho on the induction stove. For one, I can get it to a boil really quickly, and then I can bring it down to a really controlled simmer. And I let the simmer go on for half a day, sometimes longer. I'm just dry toasting some herbs that will go and help form the base of the broth. These are part of the ingredients that go in and then result in really great broth, but require hours of cooking. So when I had my old gas stove, I learned that it was emitting a lot of toxic fumes, and I learned that those fumes are heavier than air, and so they're sinking down at floor level, and I was really concerned about them having to breathe in those toxic fumes. Last step, adding some hot broth to the noodle soup. Oops, I'm spilling everywhere. I'm just going to add more bean sprouts. I like a lot of herbs in my pho. I have different herbs here. I have mint. I like to put cilantro, and of course you have to have Thai basil. And then I like to do some lime. It's not required, but it's a great touch. I'm really glad to be rid of my old gas stove because now I know the indoor air quality is safe. The old gas stove had a really terrible smell that would go beyond my kitchen. So with my new induction stove, I know that I have a safe environment inside for me and my family.
Hi, my name is Xochitl Ceguera. I live in Berkeley. I'm originally from Mexico, from Michoacan. My whole family is still there. And today I'm going to show you how simple it is to cook in an all-electric kitchen. This kitchen has a stove that is Frigidaire induction. We're going to turn it on. This is from 1 to 10, and we're going to leave it at 8. The comal is going to warm up really fast and nice. And once the comal is on, really warm, we're going to be putting our chiles. We have poblano chiles and we have güero chiles. And these are going to get really roasted fast. We're just going to wait and a couple of minutes and turn them over. You can see how fast these peppers are roasting, and the tomatillos as well. They're really getting fast roasted. We're gonna make chiles rellenos. We're gonna make chiles rellenos. We're also going to make these chiles rellenos with cheese. We're gonna make salsa verde and salsa roja. Look how fast these are really coming up roasted. We could also make soup of chile poblano. We could make rajas. We could make a lot of things with these chiles. I really enjoy cooking in this stove because it's fast and it's also really easy to clean. As you can see, the surface. I also really like this stove because there's no danger of my children getting burned because there's no flame. This surface, if you touch it, if my children touch it, I'm not worried about it. If you want to cook in a clay pot, you can still do it using this stainless steel diffuser. It's very inexpensive. It's about $20. You can find it online. And you just use it on and put your pot on top. We're going to also roast some garlic, maybe just 2. And we're going to roast them like this. You can see that the tomatoes are very close to be ready, super fast. And the comal, you can, if you don't have a comal, you can also use a flat pan. So let's do this. This is a serrano. We have serranos, we have jalapenos, and look at my poblano. So fast. And we're going to put it on a bag so that it softens, right? And we're going to peel it after 10 minutes. Let's try it for salt. I usually warm 2 by 2, then I flip them. They're warming up really fast. This, and I'm gonna eat it. Who wouldn't want to eat this? My goodness.
Hi, my name is Maddie, and I'm a renter here in Oakland. And I didn't even know, but my stovetop, because it is a gas stove, it's always emitting methane gas. And so I decided to get an induction cooktop. And you might be wondering, well, okay, what is this thing? Well, it really is an important piece of like going green in your home, and you can always do very small things. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to cook a traditional Jamaican dish. My dad is from Jamaica. I'm also a dual citizen of Jamaica. And I don't cook a lot, but one thing I love is rice and peas. And rice and peas, like rice and beans or black-eyed peas, this dish is something that's traditional throughout the diaspora. It's really simple, easy to make, and I'm gonna make it on this hob. It's called a hob because it's not a burner because nothing's burning. So these are the peas. They're actually beans. They're kidney beans, but Jamaicans call them peas, and they have been soaking in water overnight, so they're a little bit more moist, and it won't take as long to boil them. So first I'm going to turn it on, and then I'm going to press function. And then as you can see, I can turn it up or down however I want. It boils very quickly on an electric induction cooktop. It's faster than on a gas stove. So this is going to happen really quickly, and I'm just going to let it boil until the beans, aka peas, as Jamaicans call them, until they're nice and soft. Okay, so now I'm going to make some greens to go with it. Usually Jamaicans eat callaloo, but I haven't been able to find callaloo. I think you can find it at, what's it called? Berkeley Bowl. But I'm not by a Berkeley Bowl, so I got some dinosaur kale, which is some of my favorite. Okay, so the reason I decided to get this induction stovetop is because they're really inexpensive. It's only about $60 for a single, and then it is $120 for a double. And it's a great way to like immediately protect your home environment from all the toxic fumes that come out of your gas stove. So if this is something that you want to make the switch, this is a great way to do it right away. And this is just so fast and efficient. Like it's only at 5 and it's already like nearly done. Just sauteing the onions. And then I'm going to put the greens in here, and I'm going to put a little bit of corn and some tomatoes. It's going to be good. You could put the whole Scotch bonnet into your greens for flavor, but if it bursts, then you have to be ready for the consequences. So here is my lovely dish, and this is something that I would eat in the morning, maybe put a little egg in there. I did all of this on an induction cooktop.
So here's our stove, and this stove it's great. It's been great for us. When we first moved in, my mother came to visit. She loves to cook, and she was really, really worried about it. First of all, she thought it was an electric stove because it looks a lot like electric stoves from way back. And she cooks Indian food, and she just was very skeptical whether it would make the things that she loves to cook for us correctly.
My mother-in-law likes to deep fry things, and this is her very important deep frying thing. And we were really worried that it wasn't going to work on the induction stove. So when she went through all of our pots, she put it here, filled it up, and we all kind of waited on pins and needles as she turned it on. And lo and behold, her very special deep frying thing worked. And she was really happy after that. And now she tells everyone about her daughter's induction stove. What was surprising for us is that we were able to find specialty Indian cookware like this pan that is used to make rotis. And I was really surprised. I went to the Indian stores on University Avenue, and they had a whole section of induction cookware specifically for cooking Indian food. So who knew?
We're going to demonstrate how you can make Indian rotis, which are these flatbreads, puff up on an induction stove. So a lot of people believe that because these rotis are traditionally puffed up over an open flame, that you cannot puff them over on an induction stove. But that's actually not true. They puff up pretty well if you just use the right technique.
I found that if you press down on the roti, it actually allows for the roti to puff up. So you just kind of gently press down.
What heat level are you using here?
I'm at a 7.
Which is like, yeah, medium high.
Yeah. See, I start to see these like little bubbles on there. And then I press down even more. And you can see that it's starting to puff up. And here we go. And then you can flip it. So on a gas stove, you would put the roti on
A pan.
the skillet, or whatever, I think my mom calls it a tava. You'd put the roti on here. You would wait for the little bubbles to come up. You would take the tongs and you would put it over the open flame like this.
But you're instead,
and it would puff up.
It would puff up.
So instead, I'm keeping the tava just right where it is, and I'm just pressing down. And as I press down on the roti, it begins to puff up, just like that.
And the technical term for this in Hindi is fulka roti, which means like, I don't know, fulka means like puffed up flour.
Puffed up.
Yeah.
Fulka is puffed up.
Puffed up roti, yeah.
And there we go. And that actually looks just as I would expect it to look.
Yeah.
Were
really
I
puffed
cooking
up.
this on a flame.
There you have it.
Turn out really nice. There you go.
Induction cooking represents a transition to something better, a cleaner technology, a safer, healthier kitchen, less indoor and outdoor pollution, and less greenhouse gases. Want to try induction cooking for free? Go to ebce.org/induction-cooking to find all the East Bay places where you can borrow a mobile induction cooktop. You can also find big rebates to buy a new stove. The future of cooking is looking bright and smelling delicious.
Okay, are you guys all hungry yet? So now we're going to go to Yanni and Brenda and their home in El Cerrito. And they've been collecting data on their energy and water use for a long time and creating systems to become resilient for whatever the future brings. So let's watch their home tour.
So I'm Brenda.
My name is Yanni.
And this is our home. We've lived here for 2.5 years in El Cerrito.
Yep.
It's a 1940s home.
Yes.
And why did we buy this?
We found it online in the deep COVID. And one of the reasons why we bought it, because the location is really good and it's a really well-built house in a good neighborhood with lots of potential, with a big backyard. And yep, that's it.
Our motivations for doing the investments and the projects that we are doing are to be cost effective and resource effective, and to be ready for climate change while reducing long-term costs. First, we'll tell you about the energy system. We got a Tesla solar roof with the solar tiles for 2 reasons. We needed a new roof. The house was not in great condition. We had to change it, but we also wanted solar. So the roof tiles kind of solved that problem, both of those problems for us. We also have a very small roof area because of the shape of the house. So it wasn't really great for panels. It didn't have so much space. So the tiles were kind of a better fit for that. The roof has about the same lifespan as a regular shingle roof, but because it's metal and glass composite, it may last longer.
Yeah. We also wanted to utilize the federal tax credit for the PV investment.
Yes, so that make it much more cost effective for us.
So these are our 2 batteries, each of them 13.5 kilowatt hour. Overall, the 2 batteries, if they are fully charged, they are good for 1.5–2 days for the house. the batteries are always charged up to 50%, and the other 50% is basically a buffer for the solar. They are charging up during the day, and we are using at the evening that 50%. When PG&E sends out notifications about planned outages, the batteries are automatically charging up to 100% to make sure that we have electricity in the house. It acts as a UPS for the whole house. So in the last season, when we had some outages, couple minutes here and there, we haven't even felt it. The house is, in that sense, can go off-grid anytime. So you can see the application for the Tesla roof and Powerwall. The application is very, very handy. It shows the outages and also that 40% self-efficiency is achieved with the batteries and the panel. And we are also using the solar energy in every possible way. This is, how do you call that?
Sun drying.
Sun drying, sun drying, yes.
So we still have some work to do, like getting an energy audit with parents so we can better figure out how to detach ourselves and our home from fossil fuels. But in the meantime, we're making small changes inside the house that can help us utilize more electricity on our day-to-day. For example, we just use the instant pot whenever we can so that we don't have to use the stove, and most of the coffee and the tea in our house comes from this electric kettle.
I'm using a free software called Home Assistant, which is connecting different parts of the house. For example, the lights, the heating system. It captures the measurements from the thermostats, and you can add extra features. For example, this big red button. If the button is pressed, then the house goes down and becomes goes into energy saving mode. It turns off the lights. The motion sensors are turning into alarm, and also it doesn't heat the house because it means that we are not at home.
So now we're going into the water systems. So water conservation is really important to me. I grew up in Monterrey, and the last few years the water situation has been dire. During last summer, we actually lived with getting daily water shutoffs. Some people, the shutoffs lasted for days, so we had to be very conscious about utilizing as few water as we can and utilizing it efficiently. One of the things that we're doing in this home with that context is just making the garden much more water conscious. So we're getting rid of our lawn, getting rid of our turf, and going with non-invasive, water efficient plants, native plants, and plants that we can use for our own consumption. I hang out with the regional parks botanic garden people, and I got access to this manzanita franciscana, which is rare and really, really native, but it thrives in this weather, so it's perfect. And when I go there, I use my electrical bike.
So we are using electric commute tools. This is my favorite. That's an electric skateboard, and I'm commuting to Berkeley every Thursday.
So now we're in the backyard. Native plants and everything are very drought resistant, and it's great for water conservation. But if you want to grow fruit trees or something that you like for your consumption, like this avocado tree that we have here, you still need to water them. So you can use up to 1,000 gallons of water a year, depending on what plants you have. So we've thought about that and created a water catchment system ourselves.
So after changing the roof, we recognize that most of the water is coming down to this particular area. Roughly 30% of every drop of water gonna land on the deck. So we decided not to put on gutters, but rather build the deck on a way which is diverting the water from the roof and moves it into a tank. This is actually quite a lot of water because 1 inch rainfall creates around 0.6 gallon on 1 square feet. So this house can easily collect 7,000-8,000 gallons a year with the 21 inch rainfall what we expect in the area. So this is the deck. We were using tracks as a covering material. This has little gaps and the rain supposedly falling through the deck. When we were building it, we noticed that we're going to have around 40-45 inch space under the deck, which is good enough for a decent sized tank. And we also found that there is a product called the Trex Rain Escape, which was originally designed to divert water out from the structural elements of the deck. But if you are already diverting the water out, then you can divert it into a tank after some filtration. So we decided to put a huge tank under the deck and basically start collecting everything what falls on the Trex. So we decided to get a pump to be able to get the water out from the tank. The pump is a high pressure transfer pump, and the best equipments are for the RV and the marine equipments. Basically, they are selling really good pumps, high pressure pumps. This is basically the outflow, and yeah, it works. The combination of roof is providing us good enough electricity, and the water collection system, which was built basically by hand, gives us the opportunity to actually collect some water and use it in the backyard.
We just like to see our consumption of water, of electricity. We gather a lot of data so that we get to know ourselves and our home, and basically to be ready for whatever comes with climate change and whatever the future holds for us. Just be ready.
Okay, so I just want to remind everybody that on the East Bay Green Home Tour website, there's all these details. So if you see a detail in somebody's home and you want to look it up, you can find it by clicking on the picture of their home on the website. And I know that for this home in particular, that Yanni put together a very extensive sequence of what he did and how he figured out making his DIY rain catchment under his deck. So welcome, Yanni and Brenda.
And I just want to share with everyone that Yanni and Brenda are actually, when we say, you know, you're going to see your neighbors, they are my neighbors. They live down the street, and I've seen this project, you know, unfold slowly, the garden, the storage tank, everything. And today is also a special day because it happens to be Yanni's birthday. So everyone, a little shout out for Yanni. Thanks for joining us.
Birthday.
And I'm so glad to see my favorite dogs, of course, in the videos, Hoko and Mila. So
they're right there.
They're right there, of course, part of the family. This tank that you got is unusual. I haven't seen this anywhere else. It was huge and flat. Where did you get it? And do you ever have to clean it?
Yes, but so it was made by US Plastic, and you can find a lot of type of tanks. The only thing is that the transportation cost is actually fairly high, and they need to ship it. So you need to be mindful that where you are shipping it from. Eventually, I found it from, I think, Irvine or somewhere Southern California. Otherwise, they are shipping it from Texas, I think. But they have a really wide variety of different tanks, and I was specifically looking for the low profile tank. And to the second question, yes, and all of those little barrels, what they are selling for rain catchment, that's one of the big problems, that you need to have some kind of maintenance. Every second year, you need to go down there, you need to clean up, basically use some kind of water vacuum and clean up the sediment, because that's going to collect.
It's easier because this is bigger, right? So we have fewer containers to clean. We haven't had to clean this one yet, but we're getting ready for that.
Yeah.
That's great. And so once again, can you say that product again? We're getting a question in the Q&A for the company that you ordered the tank from.
It was, the producer is US Plastic, and they have different distributors around.
And we have actually a URL in the website directly to that tank.
Great. So if folks go on the East Bay Green Home Tour website and you look in the program and the homes, you can find these details under Brenda and Yanni's. Someone wants to know, how much does that tank hold? Can you say that again for folks?
500 gallons. That's
500 gallons. Okay. So, you know, when we're in drought, I'm coming to your house for some water.
Yeah. You know where to get to the spigot.
Yes.
You know, one
Okay.
thing I wanted to say that one thing that in trying to edit this video down to size, that the water not only comes out the spigot, but they can connect it to their irrigation system.
Yes, so the irrigation system is connected to a regular hose that we basically switch from the main water or to the regular water or to this one.
That's great. And as I said, as your neighbor, happy to know that we have some resilience measures right here close by.
Yeah, well, I hope everybody sort of thinks that way.
So I had seen another question that was, do you know if the Tesla roof has any extra fire resistant properties compared to other types of roofs?
I am not aware of. I can imagine because it's metal and glass composite, and I also saw the question that if you can step on it, so you can walk the roof. It's just gonna get a little bit slippery when it's wet. Then it's slippery, and actually the El Cerrito Fire Department came out to check it.
Yes.
Because they want to know that how to turn off and if they can walk on it and if they can spill water on it and all of these type of things. But it's a fairly good product, so you can walk. The rest, most probably, it's gonna last longer than the asphalt shingle roofs. So.
Great. We've got just one other question. So Sharon is wondering if you already have a deck that, you know, is built out of wood, not the tracks that you use. Could you create something like you have where if you've got slats in the wood that will collect the water, or do you need to do that with that track system?
No, you don't need the tracks, but you will need to remove the covering layer. So whatever you are using, you need to remove that, and under that you can build these pipes and put back basically the covering layer. So you need to disassemble basically you don't need to touch the frame, and you don't need to touch the structural component, but the covering, I don't know what's the name of that, but that needs to be removed.
The slats, you have to remove them in order to put them in.
Okay, well, thank you guys for showing up and answering some questions, and there might be some more questions down in Q&A and chat. So, and happy birthday. Okay, so now we are going to highlight another sponsor, which are Heat Pump Experts Electrify My Home. Okay, so stop the ad again. All right, so our next homeowner, Silas, owns a condo in Oakland, and Silas did a lot of DIY projects in his condo, but then he did have to persuade his HOA to go with a shared heat pump water heater. So let's watch Silas and talk about his process.
Hi, my name's Silas. Welcome to my home. This is a small one-bedroom condo in a 4-unit complex that I've lived in for about 5 years. I've been kind of obsessed with climate change for a long time, but now suddenly I have a property that I'm responsible for. So I liked the apartment a lot when I bought it, but I recognized that it's an older building. It was built in 1952, and it had an old gas furnace and a gas water heater and a gas stove, and I knew at some point I wanted to change those things out. Because I wasn't sure what I wanted to change, I hired a company that does energy retrofits to do an energy assessment of the building. When I got the energy audit, which I recommend you do if you want to do an energy retrofit of your home, I really learned a lot about what to do next, and it wasn't just about electrification. So the first step was to air seal the building envelope as much as I could. And that means finding as many of the holes and penetrations in the ceilings, walls, floors, and even the interior walls as you can, and sealing them up. So one of the first things I started with are these recessed lighting cans, and warm air rises, so you're going to lose heat from your living space to your attic. So I replaced all of the existing cans with what are called airtight insulation contact recessed lighting cans, which are designed to seal to the ceiling and allow insulation above them. After I tried to seal everything, I insulated the floor with mineral wool, which looks like fiberglass, but it's more dense and fits more tightly for between the joists of the floor. All the exterior walls were insulated by drilling holes and blowing in loose fill set. So this is my attic. It actually looks pretty similar to when I first got the place, but I've done some significant changes. So it had a plywood deck, which allowed it to be a storage space, and I didn't want to give that up, but I wanted to improve the insulation. So I took all the plywood out, and I built a new frame about 9.5 inches up from the original joists so that I could blow in insulation, and then put the plywood back down. It's now about 9.5 inches higher than it used to be. Still enough space to have plenty of storage. To seal the trapdoor, I ended up building a second trapdoor on the top of the one that you saw that's made out of insulation foam and plywood, and it just drops down over the trapdoor to seal it and insulate it so it doesn't leak hot air up into the attic. So once you seal a building to a certain extent, you no longer have as much natural ventilation, so you have to at least consider the possibility of installing mechanical ventilation. Indoor air quality is important to me, and I wanted to improve that. And I also wanted to do it in a way that is energy efficient. Two of the things that were important to me about this was that it not take up a lot of space and that it be quiet, because this is such a small apartment. I don't have a lot of storage space, and I really like quiet when I sleep. So I ended up deciding to put it in this closet was the best space. It's conveniently located between the kitchen and the bathroom. And this box that you can see down at the bottom amongst all my stuff is a heat recovery ventilator. It's basically an air-to-air heat exchanger that brings in fresh air from the outside and at the same time pulls exhaust air from the living space, and it passes them through an air-to-air heat exchanger. What that does is preheat the incoming fresh air with outgoing air that's been warmed in the space. So you end up not bringing in cold air, but bringing in pre-warmed air without losing a lot of heat that you've spent so much time or money or electricity to generate. What that does, in addition to providing fresh air, creates a circulation through the apartment. So the fresh air is coming in through the kitchen, through the bedroom, and out the bathroom. So this is the little bathroom. A couple of things to show you here. Up here is the intake, or rather the exhaust vent for the ventilator, which also doubles as the shower vent. So when you take a shower, you hit the boost button, that turns on high. It's very silent, you can't even hear it, but it pulls out more air than the original bathroom vent, so it works really well. The other thing I wanted to show you is how I reduce my water use in the shower, which is probably one of the biggest water uses in the house. I put a shut-off valve, which you can buy easily, between the pipe and the shower head. That allows me to adjust the flow, and that can turn any shower head that you like into a low-flow shower head. You can just adjust that valve to a lower flow rate and still have a pretty comfortable shower. And I put a little flow meter on here that tells me how many gallons I've used in each shower. With such a small space, I wanted to get a heat pump that was sized appropriately for the space and that minimized the use of high global warming potential refrigerants. After a lot of consideration of what's available, I ended up choosing what's called a packaged terminal heat pump. The entire unit, including the compressor and all the coils, are in one box inside the building, and it's connected to the outside through two 8-inch ducts that go straight through the wall. This particular unit comes with a remote control, so I can power it on, set the temperature, and operate the louver. And this particular unit also comes with a Wi-Fi app, so I can control it from my phone remotely or in the apartment. So one of the things that improving your building envelope allows you to do, in addition to making your home more efficient, is you can shift the time that you use the electricity that you've now shifted all of your heating and cooling loads to run it during the middle of the day when solar electricity is abundant. This apartment is now insulated enough that I can run the heat pump almost entirely between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. and then turn it off, and the apartment will stay warm enough overnight until the next morning. The last step in electrification is to swap out a gas stove that was in this kitchen. Replaced it with the same brand Frigidaire induction cooktop, which allowed me to do a couple things. One is it's just really nice to use, and I think anybody who prefers gas over induction probably hasn't tried induction yet. The other thing that was nice about it is it's only about 2 inches deep, and it allowed me to put an extra drawer for silverware. I noticed pretty quickly that the glass surface was getting scratched from pots, so I found a product that I found pretty useful. It's just silicone and fiberglass mat that goes on top of each burner. It's thin enough that it doesn't affect the operation of the stove, and induction ranges are nice because the cooktop never gets hot enough to burn or melt anything. Above me is one of the first little projects I did, which doesn't actually probably save too much energy relative to LED bulbs, but that's a set of Solitube daylight tubes, and it brings in sunlight from a lens dome on the roof and brings it into the kitchen and the living room as well as the bathroom. Everything else that I've shown you was just in my apartment. This is a 4-unit building and we have a small HOA, so after I had finished electrifying and insulating my apartment, I wanted to replace the water heater that we share. That required me to get buy-in and permission from 3 other owners, but I did. I persuaded them to put in a pretty expensive system, and part of the way I did that was by the rebates that are available for heat pump water heaters. About 2/3 of this project for the water heater was paid for by rebates through BayREN and Tech Clean California, and hopefully the other 1/3 of it will almost entirely be covered by new tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act. So this will almost, if everything works out, be a free upgrade. This one has the compressor outdoors, separate from the tank, and it's connected to the tank through these 2 pipes that travel through the crawl space and over to the tank, which holds about 120 gallons of hot water. This system's somewhat unique in the United States that it uses CO2 itself as a refrigerant. So if there's any refrigerant leakage, it's a tiny quantity of CO2 and has 0 impact on climate. I wanted to find a way to load shift the hot water heater as well to bring the bulk of its power draw into the middle of the day when solar electricity is available. The water heater we chose doesn't have built-in capacity to do that, so I found that I was able to add on an additional thermostat and relay switch, and now I can control the times when the heat pump is running to move most of it into the middle of the day, and because the capacity of the water tank is large enough, so far none of my neighbors have complained that we've run out of hot water. In order to electrify my apartment, I did have to upgrade my panel. The remainder of the panels are older and have old fuse disconnects. If anyone else in our building wanted to electrify, they would have to upgrade these meters because the main service is not sufficient to electrify the entire building. So I was able to get my neighbors to allow me to install an EV charger. There's probably space for a few more, but I'm the only one here so far with an EV. And I will show you in a minute, I also installed an inlet port to, in a power outage, be able to draw some power off the car to run refrigerator, lights, and a few other things. This is an aftermarket 1500 watt inverter connected to the 12-volt system in the car and connected by an extension cord to a single circuit that I installed from the wall of the building into my apartment. It's not connected to the grid, it's only for emergency power input, and it allows me to power a refrigerator and a few other essentials during a long power outage. That's about it. Thanks for visiting my little house, and this has been a really fun project for me. I found it really satisfying over the last few years, partly because I like to do projects like this myself, but also just learning about the technologies and the changes that are possible to transform older buildings that are designed in very inefficient ways into much more efficient, much less climate impacting homes that we can all live in.
Okay, do we have Silas in the house?
I saw Silas on the list. There's Silas.
Hi.
There he is.
Silas, that was just so neat to see in a smaller space, all the different technology that you're using. Just really, really neat. And I'm curious, you talked a lot about load shifting, about using different devices to be able to choose when you are going to run them. Do you have any sense of how much, I don't know, how much you're saving on your bill by using all those, those programmable for your water heating, for your other? Do you have any rough sense?
Yeah, I do. I tried to track it. I sort of started collecting information a little too late, but I have some, just usage data from before I did anything. I would say I'm probably not saving money on my bill necessarily because electricity is more expensive than gas, but I can show you how much I think I reduced the emissions of the unit. Do you mind if I share screen real quick?
Go for it.
Let's see if this works. All right. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to switch to the screen that lets me control it. Still haven't learned Zoom after COVID, but okay, here we go. So this one, is that showing red and then green, 2 green bars?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So this is just a brief, quick comparison. This is how much gas my apartment was burning over the first 2 years before I changed anything out, and how much electricity. And I just multiplied those out by standard converters into how much CO2 that emits. And it came to about 1.38 tons per year. And then after I did the retrofit, it's obviously all electricity now, about a little less than half a ton per year. And with the load shifting, that brings it down to about, about an 18% reduction from there, because I'm using more electricity during the times of day when there's abundant solar on the grid. If you consider also gas leakage, which is controversial and there's not a lot of data about it, but these yellow and red bars would be about how much gas leakage was estimated by a study from UC Davis. It's almost as much greenhouse gas contributions as just the burning of the gas, because this is all methane leakage from both the production of natural gas and from leakage from the system that delivers it to us. Methane is a 20 times more potent greenhouse gas than CO2, so it almost doubles the impact of having natural gas in a home. So if you consider that, then we're talking a more significant reduction. I don't know how accurate those numbers are, but that's one study that has shown a lot of methane leakage from the natural gas system.
So as you've gotten more fine-tuned with your load shifting, and you're doing load shifting again on this shared hot water tank that serves all the condos in your plex, have your neighbors noticed the difference in hot water delivery?
Not yet. There was one time when we just installed the heat pump when it wasn't quite working correctly. But since then, I haven't noticed it as myself, as I sometimes take showers late in the middle of the night. And there's still adequate hot water. I think it really depends on making sure you get a large enough tank so that you're storing enough hot water during the day and that you won't run out. But the heat pump itself will still kick on if somebody wants to take a shower in the middle of the night and there's not quite enough hot water. So far, no problems, but it depends on your system and how many people are going to use it.
That's great, Silas. I know, with my heat pump water heater, we also run it between 12 and 3, and then I don't run it the rest of the day. And we're a family of 4, and we all shower at night. So we're also using it when it's not operating. We've never run out of water.
Yep, as long as you have enough storage.
Yeah, and we just got a 50-gallon. We didn't get anything larger, but I know, Amy, we're running late. I just had one really quick question. So you showed how using an electric car using the 12-volt battery, which all cars actually have, you could power in a just for emergency purposes, not every day. That you did I hear you right saying you could actually power a refrigerator off of that? I mean, I thought it was just computers or
it depends on what you set up.
1500
watt inverter is certainly enough to run most refrigerators. They pull maybe 300 or 400 watts with a peak of maybe 1,000. You just have to make sure the inverter is large enough. It's connected to the 12-volt system, but in an EV, the 12-volt battery is constantly recharged by the large lithium-ion battery. So it's just
to keep your car running, right?
You have to leave it on. It's not the best system. It's just the preliminary, and a lot of cars will come with this built in soon, so you won't have to mess around with that. But it is possible.
Yeah, and I know that Amy showed a picture of a much less expensive, a much smaller inverter that you just put in what used to be called the cigarette lighter. Now I forgot what it's called now, but and that one is just much smaller. You don't have to open your hood.
Yeah, you could charge your phone and
you could charge your phone. You could put some string lights up if you had a power outage. Yeah, but that was neat to see. And at least you're running an electric car. There's nothing coming out the tailpipe versus running your gas car.
So one of the things Silas told me when we were filming is that he was looking at trying to figure out how to do solar next, which of course with the HOA comes with its own challenges.
Yeah, it's been.
Could you summarize what those challenges are?
Well, it ended up being actually a challenge of working with installers. A lot of the bigger solar installers were not set up well to deal with the complexities of an older building with multiple meters. And I ended up just choosing a single electrician installer just because of that. But yeah, figuring out the cost sharing amongst 4 units, it's still going to be a challenge. We haven't installed yet, but we got our application in time for NEM2. But it's called virtual net metering, and it's complex. I'm not sure how well it's going to work, but if you have cooperation amongst a small group of people, I think hopefully we'll make it work.
Great.
Hey, Silas, and Amy, I know on your video with your induction range, it said a $350 bay rent or 300. It's gone up now. It's
Yes, it has.
$750, right?
That was about 2 years ago. So
yeah, so this has gone up for those of you that were looking at that as well.
Yeah, I wanted to say that Silas obviously did a lot of DIY, and but what kicked him off on like his particular plan was getting a home energy audit done by Eco Performance Builders. And they're one of the sponsors of today's tour. So we're going to transition to an ad from them. And thank you, Silas. I'm sure there's probably more questions for you to answer down in the chat and Q&A.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, another one of our sponsors for this tour, Eco Performance Builders, proud sponsor of this year's program. They will collaborate with you to create the most efficient and high-performing heating, cooling, water heating systems for your home. They also pay special attention to insulation, leak sealing, and the design of duct systems, so your heat pump is just the right size. Eco Performance Builders can help you save energy, get your home off fossil fuels, improve your indoor air quality, and make you and your family more comfortable. The first green home tour actually featured homes with heat pump systems designed by Eco Performance Builders, like Kathy Kramer's and Stephanie Prugel's. The company is well known in electrification circles, and we've never met a customer who wasn't extremely satisfied with their work. So very grateful to have them as a sponsor this year. And with that, we'll kick off our next presentation. I'd like to introduce you to our presenter, Friday Apeliski, Director of Communications for the Building Decarbonization Coalition. Friday will walk us through how to find rebates, contractors, and advice, all really helpful information. And after, Friday will drop down into the comments afterwards to answer all of your questions after her presentation. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. There's so many of you here. What a delight on a Saturday to be talking about building electrification. Obviously a subject that I care very deeply about. I spend all day, every day doing this for my job. As the introduction said, I'm the Director of Communications for the Building Decarbonization Coalition. And we are a nonprofit organization that works with all of the stakeholders involved with buildings in order to get buildings off of fossil fuels. And of course, one of the most important stakeholder groups are the people who live in buildings. So we created an initiative called the Switches On to engage and inspire and move to action that whole stakeholder group. So I just thought I would spend a few minutes showing you all the Switches On website so that you know how to utilize that resource when the time comes for you. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up the site. Can y'all see this?
Yep, looks good.
Great. Okay, so this is the homepage for the Switches On. I'm just going to move this a little bit. And if you have been to the Switches On in years past, you might notice that this is a little bit different. But so, like I said, the goal of the Switches On is to do three things: truly educate folks. So I want to point out to you first that if you wanted to learn more, you can just go up here, click on electric appliances, and you'll see that we have broken this out by all of your different appliances and all the different things. So let's start with space heating and cooling. If you click here, there's some information about how heat pumps work. There are some downloads here. You can dig a little bit deeper if you like. Same thing for water heating. The benefits, how things work. So we have all of these, and also I will just show you cooking because it is a very robust section for us. And we love to talk about induction cooking. So there's all kinds of information here. Feel free to explore around and learn all about it. But I know that the purpose of today was to talk about incentives. So first, we educate folks. The way that we work on inspiring folks is through the work of our volunteer networks. Many of you, I see names that are familiar, who are ambassadors for The Switch Is On, telling your stories. And we try and do that more and more here in our news and blog section. You'll find there are blog posts and news articles and videos from ambassadors who are doing incredible work. So spotlights, this is a place to come and get inspired. I will mention that we just launched a newsletter. So if you want to be up to date on all the newest incentives and all of the newest ideas and inspiring stories, please sign up for our newsletter. You can do that here. And we don't spam you or sell your information to anybody. It's just for us to use and let you know what's going on. For example, our first newsletter went out to let folks know that there was the California-wide Tech Clean California incentive was finally up and running, which brings me to the last piece. Really, we want to help facilitate action. So if you go here to make the switch, you'll find incentives. That takes you to the incentive finder tool. Will one of you shout out for me your zip code and we'll put it in here?
94608.
94608. All right, let's do a search. Holy cow, 23 incentives available. So this is the big long list, but you can narrow this list a little bit on the side. So let's just click on single family. So that narrows it a bit. And what you will find is that this tool's intention is to bring together all of the incentives that you can apply for. Because sometimes if you end up on the BayREN website, they just show you BayREN incentives. If you end up on Rewiring America's site, they're just showing you about the IRA. If you are on PG&E site, they're just showing you about PG&E, right? And we really wanted to have a place where people can see all of the different programs that they can apply for, because as Silas was talking about previously, if you can stack some of these, you really can get a lot of these things paid for. So you can see here that there are BayREN incentives that are by appliance. So this is for a central heat pump. This is for a dryer. We've got a water heater, induction ranges. This is that 750 that was just mentioned that was increased. Of course, BayREN also has efficiency incentives that are fantastic for insulation and ductwork and things like that. This is an incentive that who can apply? Contractors. So that might be another thing on the side you can filter out just for homeowners versus contractors. But it's important to know if your contractor can apply for an incentive on your behalf, you want to know about that. So there are some East Bay community energy incentives. Also, this is a lending program. You can filter separately if you wanted to, but there are a number of different HOB lending programs that we also collect here on this website. There are some statewide rebates. These are the, this is one of them. We talked about, oops, Tech Clean California is on here, but I think it's at the bottom. You'll see here, these are federal tax credits. These come from the IRA and they're available right now. And then when we get all the way, there's more rebates, PG&E, and here is Tech Clean California, which just relaunched last month. And that again is a statewide rebate. So you can click to learn more about these rebates and they will show you all of these different pieces. Are they layerable? What's the price? Who can apply for them? Is their income qualifying? Yes or no? So if that means no, it means anybody can apply for it. And then you say, okay, I'm totally ready. I want a heat pump and I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this incentive. You can click to find a contractor and that will bring you to yet another page. Ooh, is my internet not being happy? Ta-da! Looks similar. And you can put in here your contractor's name and zip code. I want to address this little drop down really quickly and just say that the full list of tech contractors is being updated on this directory as we speak. So if there's somebody specific that you're looking for and you don't find them, click here on that list. But something like 85% of the contractors for tech are in this list, and there are a handful more that are being added on. So that's what this means here. But you can search based on find a contractor. Yes, you can search based on your zip code. Tell me that one again.
94608.
608.
Yes.
Let's do it. All right, there's 65 contractors in your area. So you can see on the side all the different appliances that they work on. We're also putting in logos that show you how they are verified and what they apply for. We're put in Google ratings. And this tool is being updated all the time. So contractors are constantly getting vetted and added to this. And we're working on a way to elevate those folks who are installing more and more heat pumps so that you have a good sense of who has been doing the most of this work, and also incentivizing other contractors to do even more of it. That doesn't exist just yet. So do look through the whole list. It is randomized at this point, but you can see, let's click here and view their profile. So you can see where they're located, what incentive and rebates they work on, if they have any specific language capabilities or other types of certifications and things like that. So this is a great place. You can also click directly to request a quote from them. And they'll know if you're coming from the switches on that you are obviously interested in incentives and electrification. So we can go back to the search results. And I wanted to just mention, we have a lot of options here to click on. I would encourage you actually to kind of look more broadly. Sometimes if you get really deep in the weeds here, you can sort out folks that you might not want to sort out. We're working on simplifying this right now. Unless you know exactly just one thing you're looking for, it would be fine. But most of these contractors do a number of different services that are related to electrification. And so it's not a bad thing necessarily to look at the larger list. And with that, let's see, was there anything else I wanted to, oops, I'm having a hard time, sorry.
Well, we're probably needing to move on. So
yeah, I was thinking that you needed me to go really fast, right? So
yeah, and you hit the main and most important things of all, is how to find those things and then how to find someone to help you get those things.
Exactly. Well, hopefully that was helpful. Also, there's one other thing that's really important that I do need to tell you about the switches on incentive finder. We keep it up to date for what is currently available for you. So for many of you, you're thinking about the IRA and what are those rebates coming back from that big, incredible piece of federal legislation, they are not in the incentive finder right now because they are not available to us right now. The tax credits that were part of that law are in the incentive finder, but the rebates are still to be determined. We know what the amount is, but we don't know exactly how you're going to get them and when they're going to be available. So we keep that tool up to date and what is available there right now. So I hope your takeaway is that there are a ton of rebates available for you today, right now. So if you are thinking about making the change, there's no reason to wait. There's plenty of incentives available to you and you can get going right away. And we will alert everyone through our newsletter and through all of our other channels as soon as we have updates. If there are new incentives or changing incentives, you will absolutely hear from us. And there always are. More and more are available every single day. And we're really excited to be a hub for everybody for that. So thank you so much for giving me some time to chat with you today. And I will jump into the chat and answer any specific questions that you have.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much, Friday.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So now we're going to see our last home, and this is the home of Jennifer in Oakland, and she's a homeowner who got solar plus storage batteries through East Bay Community Energy's Resilient Home program. So let's take a look.
My name's Jennifer West, and I've lived in this home since 2017. It's a 2-unit condo. We live upstairs in the original part of the house. I'm excited to show you what we've done so far in terms of electrification and for our solar and storage. I'm going to show you some home upgrades today that we were motivated to do because I come from a family background and my grandparents who taught me very clearly that we want to live lightly on the earth, that we need to conserve as much as possible so that everyone has the advantages that they need. So my family and I have decided to not only conserve in the energy that we use, but also to electrify our home. And we're doing so in phases. We want to use solar energy and a battery, but also stop using gas in our home. Come on inside, let's go. This is my dining room, and I wanted to tell you about how we switched from our gas furnace to a heat pump and air handler. And we insulated our attic, we insulated the outdoor walls, and we sealed the ducts in the attic. And then when we took out the furnace, we were able to use the same system with our heat pump, which not only brings us heat in the winter in a nice, gentle way, but it also brings us cooling in the summer if we need it. Up here is the vent from the ducted system, and the air intake is here in the dining room as well. This is my rain barrel, and it collects from the downspout that comes from the roof and channels the water into here, and it really fills up in one big storm, which I can use for a little while in terms of watering the plants in my yard when it's dry in the summer. One of the things we love about our house is our backyard. We put in a clothesline with a pulley system so that we can dry our clothes without using our electric dryer inside. And we're very stingy with water. Once it's the dry season here, the plants are kind of on their own in terms of survival, with a little help sometimes from the rain barrel. Back here underneath our patio is the compressor. It's one part of our heat pump that's outside because it puts out cold air here while it's heating our house inside. And then the refrigerant line runs from here all the way up and around the corner on the outside and then into the air handler in the attic. We participate in East Bay Community Energy's Resilient Home program. That allowed us to get solar and storage. So a battery to contain the solar energy that's produced during the day, but that we sometimes like to use in the evening when electricity costs more from the grid.
It also lets us keep our power on even if there's a blackout. So the battery backup will power our critical load for our home at that time. So this is our main panel, which was upgraded when we put in our solar system. This is a sub panel that holds our critical load if the power goes out, that's powered by our storage. And over here is the inverters for our solar system, plus the brain for the Tesla Powerwall, which is located in the garage. Here's where our Tesla Powerwall battery is, and it just tucks up right against the wall. And as you can see, it doesn't really take up much space because we can store things right against it. So we appreciate that. Pretty invisible. This is the Tesla app on my phone where I can see in real time how much solar is being produced. Right now, 4.4 kilowatts. How much my home's using, 0.5. And then where that energy is going. So my Powerwall's full at 100%. 3.8 kilowatt, the difference is going to the grid. If I show you like my home use, this is for yesterday, you can see the gray came from the grid, the yellow came from the solar, and the green came from the Powerwall, which helped me glide through the time of use with increased rates in the evening. We have an EV, a Chevy Bolt, and a plug-in hybrid, and we use the same level 1 charger for both. So this has been a long process for us to do the electrification projects, and we're 3 or 4 or 5 years in, and we still have the chance to change our tankless gas water heater to a heat pump water heater and to change our gas stove to an induction stove. So we're looking forward to making that switch. I also am an ambassador for the Switches On, which helps other people to understand our journey and give them the information they need to electrify their homes as well. So I know electrifying your home can be unaffordable for some folks, but we know that there are more subsidies coming, and as the technology becomes more mainstream, there are more and more opportunities for others to electrify as well.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Is she here today? I'm pretty sure I saw her.
Yeah, there's Jennifer.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, Jennifer. That was really neat to see. We've been talking about that resilient home program, but seeing your app and seeing how it works was really neat for me. So I just want to make sure I understand this. So on an average day, you can use that battery at night when you're not generating solar to reduce when the electricity rates are high during those peak hours of 4 to 9, right? But
That's right.
then
Actually, I have it set up so that the Powerwall charges during the day and then holds the charge, and at 4 it starts to discharge.
So on a really hot day when the grid is stressed and there's a lot of demand, people are coming home, and people east of us who have air conditioning or pumping it up, EBCE can take some of your battery to avoid like a rolling blackout. Has it ever happened since you put the system in?
It hasn't happened in our 2 years. I think last September, there were some really hot days when EBCE asked for customers to voluntarily reduce their load, and they did that instead of tapping into the network, I think, that I'm a part of. I don't have a very official answer for you on that, but I haven't been alerted that that's happened yet.
Okay, so 2 years, so it hasn't happened yet. And do you know if they needed to do it? Sounds like it hasn't happened. What do they leave for you, like for your battery? How much of it would they take?
That's a great question that I actually can't answer. I'm sorry to say.
All right,
I can look into it more.
We'll have folks, they can check out the Resilient Home Program on EBCE to learn more about it.
Yeah, I will say that I have my settings for my Powerwall battery so that it never goes below 20 or 30%. So there's always a certain reserve, even in the night, once it's kind of discharged to the grid, or powered the house. There's always a little bit of a reserve. And I will say also that when we had some pretty big storms this past winter, when the storm watch was set up, officially, it also changed the settings for my battery so that it was fully charged and ready to go when that storm was hitting.
And the idea of holding that reserve back is if a sudden blackout were to happen, you would still have that 20% and you could decide for you what is the most important appliance that you want to continue to power through that blackout or appliances. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for breaking that down. I just really appreciated your message that this journey can be done slowly in stages. I mean, I heard Yanni and Brenda share a similar sentiment that, you know, it doesn't have to be all at once, that for you, it sounds like it's a multi-year process.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you're, so every night your battery is kicking on to power your home during peak hours, so you don't have to pay the utilities high rates. When that happens, do you have to have specific circuits chosen, or is there a setting where it just powers the house load, whatever the load is, or how does that work?
Yeah, it powers the house, all of it, unless the power goes out from the grid.
Okay.
So that's the critical load is in a power outage. But every evening, anything that we're doing here in the home is covered by the battery if it's available.
Do you have a sense of, you know, as you continue to electrify, because you still have a couple of gas appliances, as you electrify, do you think that that's going to look really different for you? Or do you have kind of a sense of in the future what that might look like?
Yeah, I actually have a pretty tricky situation that I haven't figured out yet. And so anybody who's on this call and has more information to share with me, that'd be great. As I think I said in my video, electrifying isn't easy yet. It takes a lot of effort. And even though I work in this field, I still have some mysteries that I haven't solved. So we did a prepaid agreement with Sunrun, which is the solar provider under the Resilient Home Program for EPCE. And as part of that, we actually don't own the solar system and we don't own the infrastructure or the power wall either. And as they set up that critical load at the time, we had certain things that the electric load here in the house, but for example, when we switched our gas furnace in for a heat pump, that happened after our solar was installed. And so it is not currently part of our critical load. It wasn't there as the critical load when we first put it in. So this is something that I still need to negotiate. I've had several calls with Sunrun, but it's not really resolved. And as I electrify further uses, like you said, Amy, I'm going to have to figure that out too if I want them to be on that critical load.
Got it. That's interesting. Yeah, every home has its own puzzle with its own, because I just want to say that some homes can electrify pretty easily and others not. Others, you know, come across these challenges. So
I think the order is important. I think there's an ideal order, which is to electrify everything. Well, first insulate and, you know, reduce your energy the most that you can, electrify everything, and then put a solar and battery system in place. But the reality is it's expensive once you electrify as well. So having the solar there helped us with those costs of the electricity, which was good. But on the other hand, I'm now kind of left with this conundrum around the critical load.
yeah, but also some, you know, for instance, I started with solar because I wasn't aware of electrification. So, you know, everybody
what
has
you
to
can, what you know.
yeah, you just have to enter into the dance wherever you can.
I look forward to some government funding that goes beyond incentives and really goes to this comprehensive electrification of homes, especially for folks who might not be on this call, who might not be able to pay attention to all of this, you know, extra information. Something like the direct install and program that we see coming from the equitable building decarbonization from the state sometime next year. So I'm hopeful that we'll move beyond incentives at some point to something a little more comprehensive.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us and for showing us your home. And now we're going to see one last sponsorship ad from Switches On, who you saw Friday earlier. So here we go.
California, there's a cleaner, safer, smarter way to cool your home. Heat pumps are 3 times more efficient than traditional AC, and they can heat your home too. Can your AC do that? Learn more at switcheson.org.
So thanks to those, many of you who are still on with us. We are just about to wrap up, and we hope that you are, shall we say, I'm going to say electrified up and ready to take the next step. So just some options for you. If you still have questions that did not get answered today in our Q&A, I want to thank our amazing chat and Q&A ambassadors who are busy typing away. You can send an email to the help desk at ecologycenter.org, and your question will get routed properly. And then if you want any details on the home features, you know, the fire clay or the name of the storage tank or whatever it might be, you can go onto the East Bay Green Homes website, look at the homes, and there's also 34 other homes in the tour archives. So you can go back from years past and see many more resources and tips. And then the East Bay Green Home Tour website also has quick links to some of our favorite resources to get you going, like the Switches On that you heard from Friday today, from Bayren, various electrification guides, including one for renters that's in the Rewiring America guide, tips from Greywater Action, and Quick Carbon for free advice. And I know we've got folks from Quick Carbon who are active in our chat today. And then if you haven't visited before, definitely stop by the Ecology Center store in Berkeley. It's a really kind of cool place to buy green home items for your garden, your kitchen, and your bathroom. And if you tell them you attended the tour, you will get 15% off your purchase.
Thanks so much, Rebecca, for that plug. And as we wrap up, just sending a huge, huge thank you to everyone, to all of you for being here today. Of course, we wouldn't have this program without the wonderful attendees who have been just engaging and asking questions, and also thanking our presenters and our tours and everyone. Again, a big thanks to our sponsors, the gracious homeowners who let us into their homes for this wonderful, wonderful program. And just want to give a really, really huge thank you to Amy Kaiser of Verdant Communications. While you have seen Rebecca and I and some McNeely on the background doing tech support, Amy truly does the biggest lift for this program over the past few years. And it's a lot of work we are seeing firsthand. So we just want to extend a huge thank you. And on that note, please consider making a donation of any size to support this programming. Again, Amy is a kind of a one-person team, of course, with community support, but this program has been wonderful and it just keeps getting better and better each year. And we really, really want to support this program as well as this information that we're able to share with amongst ourselves, our communities, and our neighbors. So there'll be a donate link in the chat. Please consider making a donation to support this effort and for continued education and information. We've also sent a post-event survey that's also super helpful for Amy and the program and planning team. So we'd be grateful for your feedback. We're collecting contact info as well for those who might be interested in attending an electrification house party in the future. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure you check out that post-event survey and share your contact info. We're going to keep the Q&A chat open, I believe, for the next 5 minutes or so for any last minute questions. Again, get those questions into the Q&A panel, and then please ensure that you check out the post-event survey and the resource there to get your questions into the help desk if they were not able to be answered today. We definitely did our best. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Hey, everybody, we're officially ending. So thanks again for attending. Take care.